Read the jokes to me.
All right, I think you'll like these. Been working pretty hard. Remember, kids, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. Unless he has candy, in which case he's probably a pedophile. I'm on a seafood diet. I see food, and if it's a fish, I eat it.
Meta.
Yeah. So,
I hate meta.
well, someone once told me that today is not opposite day, but that's exactly what they told me last opposite day.
Math.
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with your first step, but ends with you collapsing 1,000 miles away, probably in some desert somewhere.
It's not that bad.
This week on Larry King Live, Marlon Brando made the shocking statement that Hollywood is, quote, run by Jews. In response, outraged Jewish organizations made it snow in New York in April.
Hey, for the 9th consecutive year, Nick, JetBlue Airlines ranked first for satisfaction among all North American airlines. But you know what ranked least in satisfaction? 9/11 Airlines. What a terrible name for an airline. It reminds me of that tragedy. Oh, 9/11. Yeah, oh, don't laugh at 9/11
What?
again. 9/11.
Such a dumb joke. Such a dumb joke. I was watching that today. I watched it like 4 times, and I was like,
Yeah,
I hate
it's so good. And there's this whole running theme throughout that whole show where Norm would just trick his guests into laughing at 9/11 somehow or another, and then make fun of him for it. And it was just, yeah, it got funnier every time. It's so good. Alrighty. Welcome everyone to Redoubt. I see we still have our Halloween background, which well, there you go. You get a little extra spookiness. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a packed show with a number of different topics and clips, but mostly around sort of the Andrew Klavan, Nick Fuentes back and forth that's happened in this past couple weeks, talking about some of the themes that we've touched on before. I think that'll be fun. But before we get into that, Chris, you shaved.
Yeah.
Looks totally different. I didn't even recognize you at first.
Yeah, my face is cold. I don't like it. I can't wait till it grows back.
It's the wrong time to shave. Yeah,
I know.
I trimmed up just a little bit, but not quite as much as you did.
Yeah.
Well, what are you drinking tonight?
Water. That's all I
Water.
I managed to grab before this. So maybe I'll grab a beer later, but we'll see. For water
Very
for
good.
now. Mm-hmm.
All right, John, how you doing?
Good. Today's my 6th anniversary with my wife. 11 years of dating together, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, just had a good day with the family, church. Went to get some nice pizza today from a really funny Brooklyn couple that moved to South Dakota in 2020 when everything got crazy. So that's kind of like strange, but that they chose to move to South Dakota. But c'est la vie. Made for a good anniversary date.
Awesome.
Nice.
John, you're coming a little bit quiet in my ear. Is that just me, or is that the same for you, Chris?
I also have my fan on,
That's fine.
so it might just be that.
That's a little better for me. So maybe that was
okay.
it.
Yeah, it was probably trying to cut out the fan noise next to me so I don't start sweating.
Makes sense. All right. Well, good deal. So yeah, congrats to John, everyone. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and pull up the Klavan clip. So, oh, that's not the one I want. There we go. Yeah, there's a little bit. So we've talked about Andrew Klavan before, and so I think that most of you are familiar with him. But he made some comments at the end of one of his streams that got some people up in arms, and especially because I think he mentioned Nick Fuentes in the stream. Nick went after him, and so there's some back and forth there. Not much from them directly to each other, but there's still a lot of, I think, commentary around it as well. So thought it was worthwhile. We'll dive into this stream.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they're reoccurring characters, if you will. I think most of the Daily Wire, because Daily Wire represents, I suppose, a part of like online semi right wing Christian culture, right? They have lots of people that you wouldn't know. They just acquired Pints with Aquinas, Matt Fradd,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
have we talked about that on the show yet? That
No.
Matt Fradd
No, I
decided
don't know that
to
No,
we
we
have
haven't
actually.
yet.
Yeah, that's
go
true.
over
Yeah, yeah.
there. So
That's
yeah. So now
I
they
s-
have 3 Catholics
Yeah.
and 2 Jews. I
Well
want to say.
outnumbered.
Some would say 5 Jews. No, I'm
It's
just kidding.
funny you bring that up. I started like an infighting today on Catholic Herald about that whole Matt Fradd thing.
Mm.
It was kind of entertaining, actually.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's lots of mockery going on over there, but I find, as looking on the outside, I find it all silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so is this a clip you want to start with, or the main one, which is simply the little soundbite of him comparing the Holocaust, which I'm sure many people have different thoughts on the Holocaust here, to the crucifixion of Christ. Now, Andrew Klavan is, of course, ethnically Jewish with a gay son that's also the editor of Daily Wire, him and his husband, or something
I don't.
like that.
Oh,
right?
his husband might work as an editor. Spencer, I don't think does much, if anything, at the Daily Wire, especially.
I thought,
I know we
I thought there
talked
was
ab-
some sort of work relationship there.
I know we talked about it before. What did Klavan convert to? Some form of Protestantism, or
Yeah, Klavan is a Protestant. Klavan
Okay.
is he's Anglo-Catholic.
Yeah. That's
so
right.
Catholic without the Pope. Yeah.
So it's just Anglican, right?
Well, it's a particular type of Anglican, but yeah, basically Anglican. I think it is officially one of the branches of Anglicanism, but I don't even know that. I don't know that they officially would put like the head of England as the head of the church in the same way that Anglicans do. I don't know for sure. So Anglo-Catholic might be its own thing in terms of structure as well. I'm
Keebler
not
Dill
really sure what
says
their church policy
Klavan
is.
says Klavan admitted to not believing the gospel is the word of God on Pints with Aquinas. Well, that's kind of a prerequisite, especially if you're a Protestant. Like sola scriptura is kind of one of the things that
Now,
that's one of the big ones. So I don't know if you have a timestamp for that, but that would be a wild
we can pull up his Pints of
wild
Aquinas
assumption.
video. It's his view is pretty. It is a little bit less inerrantist than I would like, and then a lot of Protestants would like, but it's really not that far off from a lot of major thinkers. It's not that crazy of a view, but it's easy to take it out of context.
Yeah, I mean, the inerrancy is a pretty big one, because I think as soon as you say like, oh, well, some parts are good, some parts aren't, it calls into question everything, right, at that point. So that's why it's like putting holes in your own boat. You're like, well, you're really not helping yourself out here, dog. Like, how are you supposed to explain your belief systems to someone else? And you're like, some parts of the Bible aren't true, though. You're like, that's not.
No,
I
you
don't-
can't.
I
You
don't know how
can't
to
say
explain
that. In no way can you ever say that. The question is, how do you read those parts that seem to conflict, and how do you do you adopt sort of a Catholic four ways of reading Scripture, where it's sometimes literal, sometimes metaphorical, sometimes anagogical, or it's always those four but in different percentages in terms of the balance, or that's where it gets tricky, and there's always going to be an interpretive element as well. But even inerrancy is more of a Protestant term.
But you can
Catholics,
have issues with interpretation of scripture, surely,
Yeah.
right? But saying that the scripture itself is errant, that's more complicated, right? Because we can all disagree with interpretation of scripture, of course, right? That's been the debate for 2,000 years, essentially. So I mean, but
I think the question is more around, so for inerrancy, the way that term gets used in the debate is people that are going for an inerrant view of Scripture, which I do hold an inerrant view of Scripture. But typically the question is around, if Scripture says something like an exact number, not just a rounded number, but like an exact number, like it says the number 13 instead of 15 or whatever. So it's a particular number. Does that have to be taken exactly literal, or could that be still an approximation, or could the actual historical number be one number off, but the Bible still be inerrant, or was it never trying to be that precise? In terms of the writer wasn't trying to be that precise, and so he used
but
the number 13.
numbers in Hebrew and Greek have different meanings, though, especially in the time frame, right? If you say 1,000 years in the Bible, which is mentioned a lot of times,
well,
it
exactly.
doesn't actually mean 1,000 years. But I still wouldn't say that it's inerrant, right? That is a representative of something else.
Exactly. So the question is, right, I agree. I think that I think you can still hold to a zero errors view and see certain numbers and facts and things that seem to be presented in a kind of factual way, but perhaps shouldn't be read in their original context in that kind of a modern scientific, historical, factual way in the same way. Now, generally speaking, I do tend to appeal to the Bible, even on its historical grounding. I think that that's, well, the Bible has proven itself again and again to be an accurate representation of history. But I do think that there are certain points of precision that the Bible is never trying to adhere to, that I think perhaps modern readers will try to poke holes in Scripture by saying, oh, it says this and it really should be this. And it's like, well, you're missing the point. So I think that there's at least a case to be made for that type of interpretation as being wholly orthodox.
Right, but again, I'm still fine with the less than literal interpretation of a lot of things. Of course, I think you have to be in some cases, but I think we're agreeing with each other. But neither of us is saying errancy, right? More.
No, I agree. And what I'm saying is I don't think Klavan would be very far off from what I just said. Maybe a little bit farther off. I think that he's willing to admit certain things about. He's willing to draw a distinction between Christ's words and Paul's words in terms of how he reads them, not in terms of whether or not they're the word of God or whether or not they're inspired or scripture, but just sort of in terms of the weight that we put on them and sort of how we read them, which I think is actually pretty fair as well. I mean, Paul himself at times says, this is my opinion, not God's, as he's writing. So I think there is a different kind of weight that we probably should give to certain things. That makes some people uncomfortable because, like, no, the whole thing is the word of God, and I get that too. So, anyways, we can talk more about that, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Let's let the Klavan clip play. This is the one that kind of went viral for everything.
I want to be clear about what I believe, and this hatred of Jews is a hatred of God. Remember, Paul said that we were grafted on to the tree of the Jews. You were. I wasn't. I was born there, so I outrank all y'all. Okay. So, all right, I'm joking, but still, this is this God who chose the Jews became everybody's God through Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you something. I want to be clear about what I believe. And
all right, Christian, have you seen that clip before?
No, I have not.
You haven't? Okay.
No.
All right.
Wait, was that the whole clip? He didn't even say
that was just. Oh, sorry. Did I not have? Okay.
It only played like 10 seconds of it.
Oh, did it only play 10 seconds?
Yeah.
This hatred of.
Oh, sorry. Let me find. That's the one I had pulled up. That was a different one, though. Let me grab the actual.
I mean, is that when he's just making a joke, right?
Kind of. Kind of. I think he's incorrect there as well in his references to the genealogy of Christ and things like that as well. Or like the genetic lineage rather than a lineage that is more than just genetics, right? Because Abraham became a child through faith, right? Not just because he was genetically the right substance. Does that make sense?
But Jesus was a Jew.
Yes, correct, right? Because of his covenant with Abraham, right? Right.
I mean, that's not why he was a Jew. Jesus? I was talking about Jesus.
Yes. Right. Because
He
that
was
was
a Jew
that
'cause he
was well, because that was a fulfillment of the promise, right? Not because that was like of Abraham's lineage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wouldn't. I don't know what point you were trying to make there.
Yes, and right, like both. He was a genetically Jewish and a fulfillment of the covenant with the people of Israel.
But what I mean by that is when you say we weren't grafted on to the Jews, if that makes sense. We were grafted on to the promise through Abraham, right? Not the genetic lineage. We were not genetically grafted on to the Jewish lineage.
We were grafted onto the concept of the people of God, which up to that point,
right,
the thing that we were grafted onto.
You could call Israel in the Old Testament the church, so you could say that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I would. It's not a genetic lineage, right? You
Well,
don't actually.
it was in
become
the Old
Jewish.
Testament, more or less, right? And I mean, with
Correct.
exceptions, but
Yeah.
it definitely had a genetic component in the Old Testament.
Right.
It feels
so
like
would you
there's
say,
a distinction
but would
being
you
made
say,
here without a
would you
purpose.
If you said as a Christian you have to be grafted onto the Jews, I think that is a center point of a lot of dispensationalist heritage or heresy. Sorry.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because if you say you have to be genetically Jewish, like you get grafted onto the tree of Jewishness, that's not correct. That's the distinction, right? Is it the Jewishness, like the geneticness? No, it's not that.
No.
It is the promise of God, right?
Yes, it is. It is the being selected as the people of God, which in a former time was relegated to the Jews, and then we were grafted into that. So I still just don't see
not to the Jews
well,
specifically.
Both. It was one stream, and then yes, it became it included the Gentiles. So now you have all these genes, and so it clearly became much more than simply a genetic thing. But it was at one point the promise was for a particular race.
Yes, we agree that it was for Abraham's descendants. Yes, but we aren't grafted in as descendants by blood, as Paul says, but as children of faith. Right. So I'm still confused though, because it's not the genetics, right? You agree with me on that, right?
We don't have Jewish genetics. No, of course not.
Right. So it's not getting grafted onto the Jews, it's getting grafted onto the Christ promise through Abraham, right? Right?
No.
Not the genetic element. I want to be
I guess what I'm
specific
trying
on
to say
this.
is, do you understand the concept of grafting?
Like how you would
Let's-
take a different part of a tree
Right.
or
You have
something
like
else,
an
or a
apple
vine,
tree, and you
could
want to take a
graft it
peach.
into this.
You want to take a peach thing. So you have an apple tree, then you get a peach branch, and you cut it and you tie it together and you graft it on. Yes, now you have something that is not wholly an apple tree anymore, but the thing that the peach tree branch has been grafted onto is still an apple tree. Like the original thing was an apple tree. I don't think that the
Right.
grafting on it does make the whole thing different. And now in the future we can look back and be like, oh, clearly God had in His plan a much larger thing than just a genetically Jewish thing. But what is being what you are being grafted onto was still it certainly was Jewish, and now it is more than that. It doesn't seem
Right,
controversial.
but I'm trying to make the specific delineation, I suppose, between what we were grafted onto. We're grafted onto the promise or to the genetics, right? Because in the analogy, right, you would be onto that part of that like physical tree, but we're not talking about something physical, right?
Right.
Okay. Right. And Andrew's thing is that it is physical, genetically Jewish, right? You were grafted onto us being the Jews, right? The genetics. And I'm saying it's not that.
I still think you're missing the. I mean, I know you can't take a metaphor too far, but it still seems like a distinction without a purpose. Not without a difference, but without a purpose. I think that when Paul writes about the grafting, he is talking about being grafted into, onto the Jews. Like the Jews are the older brother. They're the one. They're the.
I'm pretty sure he
originals.
explicitly. I'd have to pull up the scriptures for this, but I'm pretty sure it's explicitly not blood, and it's grafted into the promise through faith.
Right. It is through faith. Faith is the grafting mechanism, but the grafting metaphor still holds where you've got the tree being Jewish and then the
Right,
the
but
branch being
nobody's saying
Gentile.
that the Abrahamic people weren't Jewish, right? That's not. But I'm just saying. We'll have to
But
move
you're
on.
saying
We'll have to
what
move
was important about them wasn't being Jewish, and that I agree with. That their genetics don't really matter, but the fact that they were the chosen people of God and that they were chosen as a race does matter. It could have been Jewish, it could have been Babylonian. I mean, it could have been whoever God wanted. Who cares exactly the DNA makeup? But God did choose the Jews, and that was the important thing. That is what was special about the Jews, is that they were the chosen of God, and it was particular those Jews. And so what makes the New Testament so amazing is that blessing does get expanded, and so now you have the Gentiles being grafted on, but they are being grafted on to the chosen people of God. which up to that point had only been Jewish. That is what's happening. We are now the chosen people of God. Along
Now,
with
what happens if
the
that
Jews.
original tree you're grafted to falls away from its roots and rejects
Right. So I think
the new
I think
covenant?
what I would argue is that the tree would be Israel, but Israel is sort of a metaphor for the church, right? So it's not
The true
saying,
faithful. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't a metaphor at first. It does sort of become a metaphor. I mean, I agree.
All right. Well, let's get sorry. That was a totally different clip. We weren't even meaning to get to, but we'll get to the crucifixion clip.
Let me tell you what the Holocaust was, and this will drive some of you crazy, but it's true. The Holocaust was the crucifixion on Imax. It was for those who missed the point the first time that this is who we are. This is who people are, that we will take God. If you don't think that Jesus bled when little children were led into a gas chamber, you don't know who Jesus Christ is. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many times you tell me Christ is king. You do not understand what is going on. You know, when you pour the... Let me tell you what the Holocaust was, and this will drive some of you crazy, but it's true. The Holocaust was the crucifixion on Imax.
Now, what do you guys think about that equation right there? The Holocaust was the crucifixion on IMAX, because I think there's a lot to unpack there. So the persecution of this group, right? I don't think anyone would say that Jews didn't die in the Holocaust, of course. Many Jews were killed in the Holocaust, terrible things, led to camps, all that sort of stuff. Everybody agrees with that. That's not controversial at all. However, equating that to the crucifixion. Now, while there is a lot of similarities between martyrdom, picking up your cross, you'll be suffer like I suffered. However, equating the Jewish people who were Judaic, not Christians, Jews, to Christ's crucifixion, something that they deny, I don't get the link there, right?
Yeah, he's not looking at. He doesn't. The Jewish component is far less important than the Nazi component. So,
well, I mean,
it makes more sense if you watch the whole clip. But
I get it from his perspective, right? This is like his people that were killed in. I don't know how old he is, but like certainly his parents would have been within that time frame, right? So this is something that is very important to him. Totally get that, right? It's his people, of course. But the equating it, I think that it's his genetic arrogance, maybe that's the way to say it, or his pride in his lineage, I suppose, that elevates them to the status of crucifixion just by their genetics rather than, again, their faith. Because most of those Jews would not consider the crucifixion even something worthy to be associated with, right?
So his point, you can listen to him say this. He says it more or less in other clips, but basically all he's saying is, you know, the passage where it says, they did this, you've done this to the least of me, or you've done this to the least of them, you've also done it to me. He's doing that in reverse. So in other words, you fed the poor, you clothed the children in need, you've done that for Christ. Well, in the same way, when you take the poor and needy and helpless and then gas them, you've done that to Christ. That is what he's saying. And he's saying, and the reason why the people who did that is because of their hatred of God, not because of their hatred of the Jews per se, although Klavan has a particular perspective, which is a separate issue really, but I think he actually has a point that anti-Semitism is ultimately something that keeps coming back. This is the article I sent you guys. I don't know if you read it, but anti-Semitism keeps coming back as part of it's always goes along with a general hatred of God. And Klavan's argument from a historical perspective, he's looking at...
Could you say that part again? Just that
so basically, so anti-Semitism goes along with a general hatred of God, and you'll see the two go hand in hand because out of a sense for basically Christianity came out of Judaism, and and it dominated Europe with a particular morality and culture, and people that eventually wanted to throw off Christianity also had a hatred of Jews. This is Klavan's argument. I'm not necessarily making it, but
okay,
this is Klavan's argument.
Okay,
And so he would point to people like Nietzsche that talks about, the slave morality of Judaism that eventually morphed into Christianity and perpetuated this slave morality. And a big part of modernity and the Nazi movement was trying to cast off this slave morality, and they saw the Jews as being one of the key perpetuators of this concept, and so they wanted to attack the Jews. So this is his historical argument. I think there is some historical validity there. Certainly, if you look at Nazi writings, I think that there's definitely they do pull from Nietzsche, and Nietzsche certainly had this perspective. I've read Nietzsche on morality. But you can really put that aside. So Klavan is connecting the hatred of Jews specifically as sort of one of the many ways of hatred of God showing up. But ultimately, what he's trying to say here is that the people who kill the Jews are illustrative of the fact that they're killing the Jews in this particular case out of a certain shame for having killed Christ. And so what Klavan is actually arguing is that we all killed Christ, and we all recognize that, and out of a certain sense of shame, we want to continue to kill Christ. And the Holocaust is an example of that happening en masse. So I've kind of butchered the argument, but that's ultimately what he's saying. So it doesn't come across in a 10-second clip, but he's not really making a direct comparison in any way that's illicit. He's in as far as the metaphor goes as he intended it, it is totally fine. It's not something that I would take any issue with. But
so I think I find it strange that obviously he's Jewish, so targeting Jewish people is going to be first and forefront in his mind. But then he brings in the Imax, which is a reference to like Hollywood and whatnot. I think there's a lot of focus on the Holocaust specifically within media. It is the most talked about. It is dominant in society. You will learn about the Holocaust. You might never hear about the Holodomor or people dying in China or whatnot, that by the numbers affected a much larger amount of people. And I don't hear people talk about it in the same terms whatsoever, right? So when 20 million, 30 million Christians died in Ukraine through systematic starvation by Bolsheviks, I would say that would be much more analogous to saying something like that's a replaying of them actually carrying their crosses for Christ, right? And being persecuted for their beliefs, right? So for me, it's just, you have an ethnically Jewish man, even though he's Protestant, on a Jewish service talking about the Holocaust and then equating it to the Crucifixion on Imax, right? So it's kind of this summation of Western Christianity, especially Protestantism, that much of it falls into this dispensational heresy, essentially, where the nation state, the current 1948 onward nation state of Israel, is the exact same continuation from the 300 BC Israel. Like, they are actually the same thing, and we owe them our allegiance, right? Not just politically as an ally in the region, but as Christians, right?
Right, but I mean, he's not saying that.
I almost certainly think he would say that, but yeah, if pressed about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Klavan is a straight up Zionist. I think that he does, in sort of the Charlie Kirk sense, like they have a right to exist and whatnot. But
well, everybody has a right to exist, right, until proven otherwise, basically.
Right. So I mean, I think that's more or less where Klavan stands on it, and he does see them as being, as I do, as being the good guys in the conflict between Israel and Hamas, or if you have to pick between the Jews and the terrorists, I pick the Jews every time.
I even think every Jew, like even if they don't come out as a Zionist, they do have some affinity towards the nation state of Israel.
I don't blame Jews for liking Israel, of course, of course, like duh. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, I want the best for my people.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't they want the best
exactly.
for their people? Like,
Mhm.
of course. The best with normal, more like if you didn't want the best for your people, I would start to think you're some sort of like
Yeah.
psyoped 40-year-old wine mom or something. I'm like, ugh, gross.
Right. I'll be right back. I gotta get some gas from my lighter. It's just not working.
Oh,
Okay.
no worries.
Yeah, so when James said anti-Semitism comes out of a hatred for God, I
Yeah,
was like,
I hope that's not coming from you.
That's not your argument,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because I was a little like, I mean, the church fathers are very clear, like even up to really the dispensational like Schofield heresy really only started in the late
70s, I think.
Well, I would
70s?
say maybe late 1800s, 1900s, because even as early as the 1900s, you had figures like Henry Ford talking about on the Jews and their lies. You go back to that. Martin Luther said that if he would baptize a Jew, he would first tie weights around his ankles and throw him into the river, and then say, "I baptize you in the name of Abraham."
Multiple Catholic popes burning Talmuds over several occasions. Yeah.
Yeah, but then the Catholics were also instrumental in the 1800s, 1900s in coalescing and printing the Talmud as well. So they kind of flipped on that later on, which is unfortunate. But early Christianity in the Byzantium Empire explicitly forbid Jews from holding positions of power. He forbid usury, stuff like that. So, I mean, saying, not from James' position, but from Andrew's position of anti-Semitism comes out of a hatred for God. The Jewish people are condemned over and over and over again for their sins and asked to repentance and brought to repentance many, many times, just as we are, right? So I don't think anti-Semitism is just like a catch-all phrase for people that don't like being called out for their actions.
It's just a buzzword, like racist. Yeah.
Well, it's like you don't like being called out for your actions, so you call everything you don't like anti-Semitic.
It's just a way to shut down discourse. So
yeah, 100%. Excuse me. Yeah, I'll die for my own sins being born. That's right, homie. Yeah, the consequences of original sin, sir.
Works. Maybe. We don't really know.
Well, yeah. All right, so do you want to go through the full why Nick Fuentes is fundamentally wrong about me clip?
Yeah, let's do it on like 1.5 speed. How long is it?
It's 16 minutes long.
That's not
I don't know
too
if you want to go through the whole thing or just the parts where he's referring to. Do I believe there is a good person buried inside of Nick Fuentes? I hope not. Ugh. Yes. So then, what keeps that good person from coming out? Ugh. Poor phrasing. Poor phrasing. Nope. No audio.
About him that often. I was talking about the fact that I think there's a good person buried in there who's being prevented from coming out by his ideology. Conservatives by nature, I mean, this is one of the reasons why it's interesting that I don't share this, because I think I'm a liberal by nature. I'm a conservative because I'm a liberal. But conservatives by nature are good at seeing how things are going to go wrong. That's why they're...
I think that is true. I think a lot of conservatives are just closeted liberals, essentially. They're in a different paradigm. If the world was not so crazy, they would be the 1965 Civil Rights Act type of person. Right.
Well,
so they're conservative in quotation marks compared to the current Overton window. But,
right. The question is, what are you conserving? Right. So if you're conserving a liberalism from the 1960s,
but that's the problem,
then
right?
that's conservative.
If we go back to 1960, they would be the liberal trying to overthrow the current order, which would then lead us back to where we are now, right?
Conservatives. They know if you pull a string, the whole suit unravels, and that's why they think, like, don't change this, don't change that. But I think that the negative side of that, I think it's good in that it sees danger coming, but the negative side of that is you never enjoy anything, because you always can see that something bad is going to happen, and something bad always will happen. And that's why I really do believe that in a moment like that, you have to see it, because they're never going to say, like, wow, it really is better when we talk about God in the public square. Wow, it really is good when men govern like men. Wow, it really is good when America considers itself exceptional. Never going to happen, right? So you have to do that, and you have to bring the media of your mind to bear on these things. But it is true that we should talk about things that could go wrong, because whenever you see God making a move in the world, which I think I think that's what we're seeing right now. I think God is, doing that thing he does. We saw Trump honoring Charlie Kirk. The guy never sleeps. I mean, I think I never sleep, but he never sleeps more than I never sleep. Trump flew back from Egypt to honor Charlie Kirk on his birthday by giving him the Medal of Freedom posthumously. It was a beautiful ceremony. I'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But when God's moving, you're going to see the enemy moving too. And of course, that always means anti-Semitism. You will always say this. I know I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it one more. Anti-Semitism, Jew hatred is the devil's flagpole. And by the way, I'm not talking about, I don't like Jews, or I don't like black people. Nobody likes anybody. Everybody hates everybody else. That's the basic way the world works. And so that doesn't bother me in the least. I'm talking about that obsessive, the Jews are to blame for everything. They're in charge of everything. They run everything secretly, did everything bad. Anything bad that happens is them. And so we're indebted, we're controlled by.
I think that I don't use the terminology anti-Semitism at all because I think it is just a non sequitur, non-starter. But I do think that there are absolutely people who stub their toe and then go, "Damn the Jews!" It's like, well, that's not actually happening, bro. Sometimes you're just a victim of your own retarded choices, my friend.
Right. No, I mean, I think that is exemplary of anti-Semitism. I mean, I don't think. To me, anti-Semitism is no different from any other kind of racism. Anti-Semitism is just racism applied specifically to Jews, which is actually different than how a lot of Jews will view anti-Semitism, and I disagree with their definition. I think that even when you hear Ben Shapiro talk about anti-Semitism, it's all sort of, it starts to sound very much like the anti-racists talking about racism, how they start to add like a power element. It's like you can't just add things to the definition.
It turns into Marxism very quickly.
It
right?
sounds similar.
Because, well, it's like if I just point out that like 9 out of 10 of the major banks are owned by Jews, if I just state that, right, it's like that's anti-Semitic, and I'm like, recognition of reality. Like I apologize for that, I suppose, but I mean it happens to be true, right?
Exactly.
Like,
and yet some
like
Jews would say that kind of thing is anti-Semitic.
Right. Well,
like,
because you're pointing it out, right? That's the problem. They don't like that you're pointing it out. But I'm just saying, okay?
You're just noticing, dude.
It's just a little noticing. That's not anti-Semitic, all right? And if it is, that's the thing. It's like if that is anti-Semitic, then yes, by definition, right? No, and nobody on this show advocates anybody doing anything physical whatsoever, or any sort of hatred, or just saying like, hey, I don't appreciate those actions. All sorts of things that you can call out for bad behavior or whatnot. Calling it anti-Semitic actually makes people more anti-Semitic as well, right? So if Harvey Weinstein rapes 100 people and I'm like, oh wow, that's really gross, and he definitely shouldn't do that, and somebody yells at me, hey, don't be anti-Semitic, and I'm like, what? I didn't mention Jews. Like, I guess he is Jewish. It's like if you say I can't call out bad Jewish actions, now I'm going to start looking into it a little bit more. It's like I didn't even mention Jews. So why are we talking about this now? Yeah.
No. So I don't think that kind of thing is by definition anti-Semitic at all. I do think that you can certainly, I think the accusation does stick, at least in my mind, when you see certain people start to say things that, in one sense they could call just pointing out facts, but they do so in a way that is one-sided and is clearly focused, and it feels like they're a reasonable hypothesis of what would be causing them to make the arguments that they're making is an underlying hatred of Jews, right? I think that could definitely be applied to someone like Candace Owens or Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson. It might not be true, but I think someone could reasonably make that argument without bridging into this kind of extreme definition of anti-Semitism, where it's like, look, if it seems like you're seeing a Jew under every couch cushion, if you seem to have a hyperfixation and you seem to see that Jews as being the problem, Charlie Kirk gets killed and you're blaming the Jews or just asking questions about maybe Mossad. It's like that is certainly evidence to me of anti-Semitism. That would seem to be to indicate a certain hatred of Jews that is causing you to just not think straight, or at least to think in a way that seems to be very twisted and just, I don't know, not helpful. I think it's just not helpful for your rationality.
That to me almost skirts the line of the power dynamics thing, right? It's not even necessarily that you're saying they're wrong, but you're like, well, the underlying narrative, because you dislike them, therefore I think it's anti-Semitic, not actually addressing like the argument at all, right? Because
I can address the argument too,
I can make an argument that the Mossad had JFK killed, right? Because they didn't want them to get nukes, right?
Which
that's not anti-Semitic.
Could be true. No, I don't think that is at all
I can pull
either.
up arguments for it. But if you're like, but what if I was just a raging anti-Semite? You'd be like, oh, well, you're just being anti-Semitic. That just blows me off and doesn't.
Well, it's a question of scale, right? If every thing seems like it points to the Jews in your worldview, then I think one looking in from the outside could very rationally say, hey, it seems like maybe you've got a problem with the Jews. Maybe
You're
going
going to
to
disenfranchise the legitimate arguments. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which is very easy to do. I mean, we can all do this with all kinds of things. So again, it's not like a special case, but it does seem to be something that people
seems like it
find
happens
very attractive.
It seems like it only
that's
ever
what bothers
happens
me.
one way, though, right? Because it's like, I don't know, certain people of color finding white people to be to blame for everything, right? I can just say they're wrong without even needing to pull out a race card, whatever, right? Pretty easily. So,
I mean, the race card can be very easy to apply, and it is frustrating when it's done that way.
well, yeah, but I'm just saying I don't even, like, that's not my first go, is usually pulling out a race card. I can just say you're factually wrong and retarded, right? About whatever it is, without having to go. Where it seems like, now maybe it's just because of some history or persecution, but people of Jewish descent usually just go straight to the anti-Semitic card, which I think less, like the more you play that card, the less it gets, the less
I
useful it
totally
gets.
understand that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and especially if you're using that to avoid the issues, right? My point is, you can deal with the issues and then say, hey, look, this was a bad argument, but I suspect that the reason why you found this to be a convincing argument is because of your underlying hatred of Jews. I think that's the only appropriate way to go about this. If you're just using anti-Semitism as an accusation to avoid even talking about the argument, then yeah, don't bother. Like, just get out of the conversation. You're not helping anything. But if you can deal with the argument, find it unconvincing or debunk it or whatever, I then think it is fair to say, hey, this shouldn't have convinced you. And I think this applies to many of the things that I've heard, Candace or Tucker or Nick say, where it's like that's just a dumb argument. But you're not a dumb person per se. So what might be causing you to make such dumb arguments? That's my point.
It's a reverse APAC that's paying them $7,000 per tweet to be anti-Semitic. It's what's an anti-APAC like? Surely there's an organization.
It's actually
out there.
the Jews controlling the other
It's
side
actually,
as well.
it's actually the Jews. They control both sides, but
They benefit from the.
It's all for
controversy.
Twitter impression.
Yep.
Well, actually, that's a great Jewish conspiracy
Yeah,
right there.
that's
Is that
it.
they're actually in control of Candace to
Yep.
make anti-Semitic people look bad. See, they control both sides, so they always come out on top.
Yep.
By Israel, nutty stuff. I'm talking about crazy, obsessive, crazy stuff. It will always arise, and it will arise on the right, and it will arise on the left because it is about God. It is about hating God. And if you ever want to read my article about this, it's called.
Okay, I do have something there. I don't think anti-Semitism or hatred of Jews and stereotypical Jewish accents is a hatred of God, right?
Hatred of racism in general is hatred of God, right? If you're hating
No,
the
not
Imago
at all.
Dei, then you are hating God. No.
No. I don't think racism, as most people would define it, is unbiblical or unchristian. If
Well,
racism
I'm
is
defining
simply,
it as hatred towards someone on the basis of their race. I mean, that's the only valid definition in my mind.
right, and I think hatred would be incorrect, right? To hate a man simply for color or for even ethnicity, right? I could hate Irish people because they're dirty and retarded or whatever, but
Right. No, you could hate
that's
them
just
for
my
that.
own-
That wouldn't be
that's just my
racist.
own
But if you hate them because
personal
they're
foibles.
Irish, exactly. But if you hate them because they're Irish, that's racism, and that is a violation of the Imago Dei. I mean, that's
right.
it's a
Most
sin against
people
God.
would
It's a sin
not.
against the
Most
image
people
of
would.
God.
Most people would not have that definition of racism, though, right? Because if I simply point out like differences between races or whatever it might be, people would call that racist, right?
I mean, people can call it racist, but it's not. That's not a fair definition of racism. Right?
Sure, right.
I mean, that's like a
But
leftist definition of racism. That's
correct, that's the problem. That's the people that we're up against, right? So I'm not worried about your definition of racism. I'm worried about the definition of racism writ large, I suppose.
I thought we're more or less having an intramural argument again, with other conservatives where, so why do we even need to bring
On
in?
this
Obviously,
panel,
the leftists are wrong about racism.
on this panel here, sure.
But even when we're talking about people like Klavan or Nick, or like we're talking,
right. So
I think
what
we're all
I'm
talking
saying
from a
is, so if I
similar
ever get
perspective on
quoted,
racism.
when I get called a racist by somebody, I don't care, right?
Sure.
Because it's not relevant, it's not useful, right? Because unless they're using a definition like yours, which again, almost nobody is.
I think conservatives and Christians usually are. That's certainly when I ever use the word racism, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, but you're probably not throwing it out at people very often.
Well,
so
no.
when people are actually using it, the majority of people, they're using it in a whether it's noticing, whether it's preference, right? Because I think in-group preference is normal, and I don't know how
Right,
that
but
would be a bad thing.
all I'm saying, I mean, my definition is pretty similar to Martin Luther King Jr.'s. I mean, I feel like I don't think it's as rare as you're assuming. It is different from the leftist critical theory, critical race theory definition. But if once you exclude that, I think pretty much the
Well,
racism
here,
I'm
let
talking
me
about is what
test
people are
your let
talking
me
about.
test your definition, right? Okay, so let's say I have a preference for only white people. I only have white friends, and I have a preference. Don't hate anybody else, but I only have a preference for my own group. Is that racist?
I mean, a preference probably not. I guess it depends a little bit. I mean, it could
Probably
be.
not.
It could be
No
racist.
hatred, no hatred, but I prefer my. See, now you're calling me a racist again because I have a preference for my own people.
Wait a second. So if that preference is for your own people on, if it is on purely racial grounds, purely their ethnicity, not even their culture or anything, then you are, then it would seem like you are being
But look how fast
anti
that
a
changed
certain.
from hatred to
What-
just
What's
that?
preference. That you changed the definition of racism to hatred, which I agree with.
Well, again, it
to
depends on what you
preference, which I
mean by
disagree.
preference. It depends
Well,
on what
like,
you
so
mean by
let
preference.
me be clear. Andrew Klavan loving his own people and like wanting the best for them and having a preference for them.
Yeah,
I agree with.
That's
1,000%.
fine. If that's all you're
1,000%.
saying, then that's fine. Yeah.
But what if I told you that I prefer my people to Andrew's people?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. If that's what you
Okay,
mean, then I don't think that's
Yeah.
racist. Yeah.
I
It
mean,
just kind of
preference,
depends on
like,
what you mean.
just preference.
Yeah. I was going to apply the same argument for a spouse. What if, like, I prefer a white girl because I want white children? Like, would that be racist?
No.
Okay.
Sexual preference is not racism.
Just
I
asking.
think the
Well, because that's what
the
because I
issue
want to make
comes
sure it's
in.
hatred, not
So
preference.
I think what I want to couch against is a permission not to love, right? Because we are commanded to love our neighbor, not just the person. And I am aware that we can love our family first, and like there are circles, but we are still commanded to love every human made in the image of God, and so we
I
can't
mean, the
just
Good
say it's
Samaritan
but
we can't
there
just
is-
say
perfect
no
example of that.
hatred,
There
but
is-
we also don't have to love. It's like no, we have to love as well as not hate, and
We've
that's
talked about this before, though, but there's responsibilities to that love. Like,
Yeah.
So there's tiers of it.
No, I mean the Good Samaritan is a excellent parable for loving your fellow man, regardless of whether they deserve it or like you at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
100%, right? But I'm specifically being very narrow here and trying to say just preference.
But
Right?
ag- yeah,
So
right,
No,
again,
no
but
sort
preference
of
could mean-
exclusion, just preference, right? So if I had to, in this fairy tale hypothetical world, make a community for me to live in, if I had a preference for my own people, is that racist? People that share my cultural heritage, right?
That's great.
Jesus, in 2019, you'll make it, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your narrow definition of hatred, I can agree with. But if I tell a normie conservative that no, I have a preference for white people, they'd be like, oh, why? Like they would that would almost be too harsh for most of them. I feel like.
Well, because there are real world considerations that start to come in, even when you're talking about something as simple and non-offensive as preference. Are you talking about preference in terms of legal standing, preference in terms of law? Like, let's say you have you set up a society that's all white people, and it's just all the people that you prefer. Now, does the law prefer them in terms of someone, a white person offends someone?
Well, legal
from
preference would
outside?
be discrimination based on race solely, right? But I'm talking about personal preference, personal. So if we
Well, okay,
if we
but that's what I'm
extend that
saying.
out
So-
to society, right? I mean, that could be.
So it's not okay for society, but it is okay personally. But that might be true.
I
I'm
mean,
just-
discrimination based on race is actually again used in.
Well, I'm not
early
so much talking about
Christendom as well.
discrimination. I mean, I guess it would be discrimination, but I'm more talking about. I guess right now I'm talking about justice, but judicial preference.
Well, I think as
you
Christians,
don't want
we would,
judicial preference
we would
against.
we would have to be just as Christians. We would have to be
Right.
just. So we
And-
would have to be, I suppose, blind in that respect.
Right. And I think that along those lines, I think that there are probably other, just when we start to take from the major abstract to the nitty gritty of life, I think there is a biblical prodding to be blind, probably in many respects. And in terms of race, I think that, I'm not. It would. I'm not sure what the reason to prefer purely on the basis of race. Now, it's different when it comes to
I think that is
family
God-given.
and
I think
nation and
that's
those sorts of
God-given,
things.
Yeah, like ethnicity, basically, right?
I mean, I care a
'Cause
lot
I
more
mean-
about nation than ethnicity.
Well, you can't separate the two.
Well, you can because of intermarriage. I mean,
Right.
so I mean,
you're-
a nation
okay.
will morph over time, and so
It can, sure. Well, I mean, they usually do morph, but usually we're not talking about going from, let's say, Scotland to Kenya, right? Usually we're talking about Scottish and Irish, Scottish and Welsh, right? It's something that is geographically linked together that has some sort of, at least.
I mean, this statement just
somewhat
isn't
shared.
true, right? Nation is race just isn't really true. If that's how you're
I think
defining race,
I
then
think they're
sure, but
connected. I think
they're connected, yeah,
in
absolutely,
almost
but they certainly
every
aren't
way.
equivalent. Unless you're just redefining one of them to be the other, in which case, okay, now you're operating from a
But
novel
I don't think you
definition
can
of one of
have.
those
I don't
things.
think you can have one. At least like 98% of the time, you can't have one without the other. Like almost always, nations are born out of a specific dominant ethnic group, though there might be ethnic.
I mean, unless you have a
Anomalies
transplant
and
nation like
whatnot.
the U.S.
Well, right,
In which
we're
case-
very ahistorical, though, right? So people say,
Yeah,
"Oh, the
for sure.
America," but it's like that's like the one-off, right? Throughout all of history, there
But
are a
it has to
couple
be the
others. There
one-off
are other
that I'm-
empires and,
that I'm a part of. So this is my nation. I care much more
James.
about
We're
this
living
nation.
in the experiment right now.
Right. Well, exactly. I care much more about this nation, and you know, my black American friend, I care much more about than some random, some white guy in England, even though he might be more closely related to me because I'm probably English or Scottish or one of those.
All right.
I
all
have
right. Here,
a lot
let's
closer connection to
I
someone
don't-
who's
I don't-
American.
see. I don't know if you want to go down this, but let's do a hypothetical. All right, a second generation Somali or a UK man fresh off the boat, and by UK man I mean a white Brit fresh off the boat. Which one do you think you have more in common with, James?
Well, almost certainly the UK man.
Okay.
But it would depend. I mean, I mean, cultural factors are real, and I would assume that you're talking to a Dearborn Somali person. They're not going to be. They're
didn't
probably
say
going to
that.
tell
That
you
was-
they're not
that
American.
was your racist stereotype
Yeah,
right
that's
there,
right.
James.
Some stereotypes are true.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, but if you're talking, I mean, but here's the point: the race is not really the issue. Like if you're talking about a Somali second generation person who's just completely rejected his Islam, his Muslim beliefs, and has embraced the American experiment versus some liberal English person that gets off the boat and is here just to trash on America. He's a university student and he's out there protesting. It's then I probably have a lot more with a Somali. So the race isn't the issue. Neither is
Right.
it purely ideal either. It's not purely just the ideas. It is a combination of the two. And there is a certain American spirit. There's a certain spirit that comes with every nationality. But to me, it is more nationality than racial.
right, but where does that spirit come from? Does it come from land or from a people? So my question to that would be: so let's take your example where
Again,
you have
both, I think.
the gung ho Somali pro-American. He's going to pass off certain genetic characteristics to his children, and the European who has leftist, liberal, loony beliefs is going to pass off certain genetic characteristics, to his progeny. Which one of those do you think is more conducive in the long run?
Sorry, more conducive to what?
The nation of America. Basically, what I'm asking is, are Somali genetics or are Western European genetics more
I
conducive
think
to
that
America?
the American experiment is one of multiracial people. So I don't know that either one is
multiracial or
inherently more
multi-ethnic?
American. Well, both. I mean, race is
Well, you can have multiple ethnicities within the same overall racial group, right?
Right,
So,
I'm not
for
saying that
instance,
they're identical,
Scottish-
but I think both I think the American experience is both multiracial and multi-ethnic.
Right. So would you say multiracial as in like white, black, and Middle Eastern, or what combination of races?
What do you mean?
Well, so like you say, it's multiracial. So
I mean, anyone that we allow in here and allow to be
but talking about the founding specifically, like what sort of races?
Oh, I mean, it was mostly European.
Right. So that's what I'm saying though. So it's like
I mean,
I think though you can't take the
denying
values.
history.
You can't take the values out of the people. I think a lot of times
I
in
just
modernity
don't think
we
that
try
the genetics are what makes someone. You know, the reason why I generally
God
prefer
lift
someone who
up
is white
certain
is not
nations?
because of the genetics that makes them white. It's because of the cultural of Western culture that they are inheriting.
Where does the culture come from?
Not from the genetics, but from
No.
the history.
Do different people? Okay, where does the history come from? Because we at some point we have to keep dialing it back until you get to like the building blocks of the people themselves, and I believe that is genetics, right? And I believe that is given by God.
Right, but
certain nations are
people,
cursed by God. Certain nations are blessed by God for certain times.
Yeah, but
right?
all people are made in the image of God.
That's a good deflection, but that's not the point. Because I believe that we're
Isn't
all
that
worth the same amount.
If you are just tracing it back and saying that the reason why they're this way as opposed to another way is due to
different
their
genetics seem to end up in different places, right?
As a
not
product
that they have
of
different
history and
values before
culture,
God.
not. And I'm not
But
saying
the
that genetics play no
come
role in that
first.
either, of course. But well, the image of God comes first, and that's what I'm trying to.
Right, and the genetics are.
I want to be very
given by
careful
God.
not to. Sorry, say it
So
again.
I would say God would be the first building block, but then
Yeah.
He creates different people, right? And you
Yeah,
can never get away from
people
what
make
God
mistakes,
has
and those
created you
mistakes
as.
have consequences for their children.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have no issue with any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that to your point earlier, you were basically saying that you can't separate the history from the genes, and I'm saying I think that you can. I think that the history, you can trace back the history, and you can stop short of blaming the genes.
Well,
I don't know that you have to,
I don't
but
know
I
blaming genes, but I think they are at least tangentially tied together in some way or correlated, right?
I mean,
so
maybe
for
at
instance,
the-
if I magically had this randomizer device and I could go back and switch everybody in America's beliefs, or not even beliefs, I'll maintain their beliefs but change their genetic material to be that of, let's just say, Japan or something, right? I think 250 years later you get a vastly different society. Vastly different, even if their beliefs at the time are the same.
okay, you change everyone's genetics at a particular moment in time. And
So,
you see
for
a
instance,
butterfly effect later.
everybody in America at 1800, let's say,
I mean,
switch
we
all
are
of them
hylomorphic
genetically.
beings. We are body and soul joined together. I'm not denying that.
So, and I think it's silly to even run away from the things that your ancestors have done, right? So I can see like the good and bad things that my ancestors have done and understand that I am here because of that, and I should strive to be the most like God as I can be, right?
Right. I guess my point is all the genes, regardless of the history, are from God and are representative, are part of the Imago Dei. They're part of the image of God. And so to blame the genes rather than the person's bad mistakes, or even God cursing them or whatever, to find the root cause of the essential attributes of a people in their genetics as opposed to in their history seems unnecessary and imprudent. I don't see that.
I completely agree with you that we all have the same value. We all are made in the image of God, right? Nobody disagrees with that, right? I think what I'm saying for is more of like a societal issue, right? So if we just transplant and change the demographics of a nation, by definition, we've changed the nation, right? It's no longer the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so I think that certain genetics in general, they're not made in the image of God, not that they're lesser, not that they're, I mean, I rarely even put a good or a bad qualification on genetic characteristics, just that they are different. right? And so
Yeah.
if you have a preference for one, or a certain type of society tends to come out of a certain set of genetics, right? I don't know why God has made the world that way, but it would
Probably
appear to me that
less
he
than.
has.
I mean, certainly some. I do think that not a. I guess what you're saying starts to sound closer to racial determinism, where our attributes are determined by the race or by the genetics, and I think that we.
Well,
I certainly wouldn't
I
affirm
think
that.
there's a.
I think that there's a
link,
product of
right?
nurture
Am I
and there's a product of nature. I think that,
Yeah,
that there are
I think it is
components.
dual. I think it is dualistic,
Yeah.
but I don't think you can get rid of.
I think it's
your
probably
nature.
much more nurture than nature. But
Okay,
those
so I
two
think
tend to
we would
go
just have different
together.
elements. We would just have different
Perhaps,
levels to nature and nurture, probably.
But I think it's also
Right.
really hard to test that because generally speaking,
Well,
your
the
because
amount
you,
of power it would take to test this in a vacuum, right? And to run experiments on
Right.
people.
but also just because the nature element is going to contribute to the environment that you are nurtured in, right? Most of the time. So the best way, I guess, to run this experiment would be to take someone out, transplant them, and then raise them in a different culture, which we actually do have plenty of cases of that where people, will get adopted from China or whatever, and they're raised in with American values. And I think so that's where I would point to things like that indicate that no, it is far more the nurture than
Right.
the genetic
But you-
nature. But of course,
gotta-
if you're all within that culture, the nurture and nature are going to be very closely tied. You have to sort of pull something out to really start to tease it apart.
And I do want to couch that a little bit, because that is a hyper specific case in which, like, a singular piece of genetic material person has been brought out of one culture and then completely inundated in a new culture. Like, so you have, like, that is all that they've ever known, is that new in group, that new people group, that new culture, right? So that's that one individual. Because I know people that have been adopted from China as well, right? That were basically Christians would
Right.
take them because they were like genetic seconds, basically. They had some sort of disability to be brought out, and they're great, upstanding American citizens, right? But that is like on the individual level, not on like 10,000 at a time level, where they don't even assimilate, right? So I'm more
I mean, but the
talking about
reason
in a
why it would be hard to
societal
assimilate is because you're doing too much. But still, the
Like,
individual
how much
cases would
nurture
cut
it would
against.
take for even an individual, right? Is
It-
you have
it would
to
take
completely
more
change
nurture,
their entire. That you have to change their entire culture, family,
Right.
everything.
The more
everything.
the more nature you pull out, you try to translate, the more nurture it would take to actually have an effect. What is this?
There's a documentary about this called Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. True,
That's right.
very true.
Yeah. Oh, there was a question earlier that I had up about do I believe in race? I mean, yeah, I believe in race. That race is real. I guess you'd have to tell me your definition of race. I might not agree with your definition, but I'm not a blank slate guy, right? I don't believe in tabula rasa. Pretty much no one does in this day and age. But
La Raza?
yeah.
Are we talking about the Mexican supremacy, the half white, half Mexican La Raza?
Tabula rasa means blank slate. It's the idea that that it's
okay.
all nurture, not there's
say-
no natural component.
La Raza is a Mexican supremacist movement where it's quite literally half white, half Mexican, and they call themselves the race La Raza. So I didn't recognize that term. So. But I would not say blank slate. I would say that we have like base elements, like in an RPG, right? Certain traits are lifted, certain traits are put down a little bit for different races, not even in a good or bad context, but I'm saying they just have like certain specialities, right? All right.
Yeah, I think that's probably
Anti-Semitism
fair.
is the Devil's Flagpole. It's on my Substack that I run with Spencer Klavan, no relation. It's called thenewjerusalem.substack.com. We have essays and conversation. If you look up essay number 4, you can click it on the top. Essay number 4, it will explain and show the receipts of why I believe that Jew hatred is really the hatred of the Jewish God, who became everybody's God in the West through Jesus Christ. So it's really a hatred of Jesus Christ. That sounds like a paradox, but it's really, really not.
I can pull up that article, by
I
the way.
explain why I think it, and I show the quote.
About the New Jerusalem, his
Yeah.
article. Well, I mean, we're already an hour in, so I don't know how many articles you want to go through.
Okay, it's fine. We can just keep playing. I have it.
that
if we
prove
need
it.
reference.
And again, I'm not talking about just regular run-of-the-mill, I hate Jews. I'm talking about that obsessive stuff that you see. And you can tell it's a spiritual problem, because everything becomes the opposite of the truth. So when people talk about Israel, these people talk about Israel, they're not saying, I think Israel is a little harsh, or maybe they've gone too far in Gaza. Those are opinions you can have. But when they start to call it a genocide,
I mean, see, I'm actually almost okay with it being called a genocide in certain respects because I think there are certain elements within Israel that do want to completely remove the Palestinian people there. And my stake in it is nothing, right? I want it to be a footnote in somebody else's war halfway across the world for me. But I mean, people calling it a genocide, I mean, certain elements within Israel want to remove Palestine entirely. They want it leveled and turned into condos or whatever it might be. So whether you call that genocide or displacement or just removing the
Ethnic
terrorists, which
cleansing,
happened,
yeah.
well, which happened to be tied to an ethnic group, right? We're just removing the quote unquote terrorists as we, remove the entire people group.
Yeah,
Yada yada yada. I mean, I honestly can't feel too bad about it. I mean, like just people getting displaced throughout history, like it happens, right? Like I don't cry about the Native American tribes here in America, right? Where we were like, hey guys, sorry you lost. Here's a piece of land, I guess, or whatever. Like I can't feel bad about that now. It's like
Right.
people lose throughout history. It sucks.
I think that's fair.
Happens.
I do think that genocide is a different thing, and I do think that it is probably it's good to call it out as a bad thing. And I do think that
Well, of course, you could recognize it as an evil, right?
as opposed,
But-
whereas displacement isn't necessarily. Certainly, the kind of displacement taking place in that part of the world, and you can look at the again. There are plenty of Muslims in Gazans, I believe, living peacefully in Israel. So that to me tells me that it's not a genocide. I think it is a defensive war. Now you can argue with the methods, the tactics that are used.
Wait. A defensive war that is grabbing more territory.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
You can do that. Totally within just war theory.
Well, no, I'm not saying that
if
war isn't
attacked,
just.
then you take over everything. Then you go in and you wield as much
Right.
power as you.
Yeah. If you allow October 7th to happen, murder women and children. All right, we're good.
Palestinians are genocidal. It is part of Hamas's founding idea that the Jews should be wiped out off the earth. And by the way, that's just a prelude to enslaving everybody else. They want the Jews dead and then everybody else to be dead or enslaved. So they're the genocidal ones. The Jews are just fighting a war. I mean, when genocide has a meaning, right? Words have a meaning until you are so consumed by Jew hatred that all meanings turn on their head. But genocide means killing a race of people because they are that race, trying to erase that race. That's what it is. When we fought the Japanese in World War II, we killed a lot of Japanese people because Japan is where the Japanese people live. You can tell by the name. But we weren't killing them because they were Japanese. We were killing them because they bombed Pearl Harbor. They call the Jews colonizers in Israel when they are the indigenous people. Everything becomes the opposite. That's how you can tell it's a spiritual sickness. They say, be.
So here's one of my favorite pet theories is that the modern Jews in Israel are less Jewish than the Palestinian people. They share less genetic material with the Jews of, say, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. That's my favorite little pet conspiracy theory.
I mean, I guess it's conceivably possible, but they would still be it would seem a more intermarried group, you would think. But I don't know. I'm not quite as, I know that Jews tend to be very careful about that kind of thing. And so,
well, the issue is Talmudic
so even
Judaism.
in the diaspora, you would think that they were able to maintain pretty careful control of the bloodlines.
It seems that most genetic lineage of modern day Jews is Eastern European in a lot of ways, whereas people in the Gaza region have more ancient, like Semitic genetics from that area, right? So you could say that in some ways they are more Jewish than the Jews, which I find quite funny. And also why, which is true for some reason, I don't know why this is, but genetics, DNA tests are banned in Israel. I don't know why that is. It just happens to be, right? I don't know.
Bibi Netanyahu, he controls America. He says when we can do this, when we can. Bibi Netanyahu and the Israelis are so afraid of America because we are their support and their only support. They will not offend us for the world. I mean, it's just, and then you hear things like, I think it was the BBC, and if it wasn't, I apologize to the BBC, but I think it was them who had an article saying it's been 2 years since Israel started the war. Israel started the war. The New York Times says we had a hostage exchange because the hostages weren't just released. Their release was bought by releasing prisoners, terrorist prisoners. That's not a hostage exchange. That is buying the freedom of innocent hostages with the freedom of murderers. That's, so every word, just, all of the morality is stripped of every word. You can tell that this is a spiritual sickness. And so now and this is on the left, that, they filled the campuses the minute Hamas attacked and women to death and shot babies in front of their parents and slaughtered people with no.
See, this is one of those areas where I unfortunately have to align myself with blue-haired retards. But I mean, you could just look up the videos of IDF raping their prisoners or whatnot, and then they said, "Oh yeah, it's just something we do, by the way." And I'm like, this is why it's if I have to care about this, I don't think I'm going to be falling on your side, homie.
Well, not only that, and the Hannibal Doctrine they enforce as well. Just
I mean, it's also everything that comes out of Israel, I have to believe their government, and I just happen not to. Right? I don't believe everything that comes out of my government, let alone some people with some history of some interference around the world. Let's say good propaganda, great propaganda.
Excuse whatsoever. The minute they did that, the left poured into college campuses screaming, ceasefire now. All of those people have disappeared because they weren't looking for a ceasefire now. They were looking for the destruction of Israel. They don't want this ceasefire because this ceasefire is a victory for Israel. That's not what they wanted. But now, because it's become so clear that the left is the source of virtually all political violence, it's not the source of every act of political violence. There are always going to be crazy people on both sides. There are always going to be crazy people who kill for reasons that we can't understand or reasons that we might think are good reasons, but you don't kill for them. All of that stuff is going to happen. But the relentless call to violence is only on the left. So Politico went out and they uncovered some kind of chat site where young people were on there using fascist terms and Nazi terms, and now suddenly we are called upon to renounce these people. And so I'm looking at this, and some people have renounced them. The leaders of the young Republican groups came out and says, we don't agree with any of this. But now there's an argument going on, and it's going on in the Daily Wire as well. Matt Walsh put out a tweet saying the right doesn't stick together. That's our biggest problem by far. And he's said more than this, but he says conservatives are quick to denounce each other, jump on dog piles, disavow, attack their allies. I said a few weeks ago that we all need to band together in the wake of Charlie's death, and the answer I got back from a lot of people on the right was basically no. Well, okay then, guys, we'll just lose instead. The left will keep up the united front and defend their guys no matter what, while we keep throwing each other to the wolves at every opportunity. And Nick Fuentes, virulent anti-Semite, openly an anti-Jew hater, a Jew hater. Nick came out with this comment. His response, this is not a response that comes from Walsh. This is Fuentes' uncalled for unasked for response.
Mm-hmm. So you guys have probably watched more Nick than I have. I mean, I don't even know, but
I've watched maybe in total about an hour.
I've probably watched the most out of everyone here.
Okay, so is that fair? Is Nick an anti-Semite? Would he say that?
I don't think so, to be quite honest. He does say a lot of slurs and whatnot, obviously. But
I know he's incredibly.
Nick is a nonstop slur machine. The problem with Nick is that when I've seen Nick clips, there are things that are that's a joke, that's sarcasm, and then he'll have a serious monologue where he's like, "Listen, guys, I don't hate these people. I don't hate these people. We need to do X, Y, and Z, and we need to limit control here and do this and that." And I'm like, I think that was serious. So if I take the best faith interpretation, I think that Nick is. I mean, Nick probably meets the definition of an anti-Semite. I think that's completely fine. But here's the thing: if Nick was saying that same thing about me, I would be like, "Screw that guy." If he was saying that the exact same jokes about let's say he was black and saying that about white people, all you white people suck, man. I'd be like, don't like that guy for some reason, Right. So I totally get people not liking Nick for that reason.
Fair enough. Yeah, and that's why I asked, because I haven't watched too much of him, but it's obvious that he definitely. It's obvious that so much of what he says is facetious, is over the top, it's hyperbolic, and or is intended for comedy, and so I've lived long enough to not to take people.
It is a little fair,
seriously.
just unfair to just judge him off of the clips as well.
Exactly.
So.
All right, so let's get to some super chats before we continue. Patches O'Houlihan says, "I'm anti-pornography, anti-usury, anti-immigration, and anti-gay. Apparently, that makes me anti-Semitic. I don't think that makes you anti-Semitic. I think you're okay on those, actually."
Well, I would just say that all of the major organizations that push those sorts of things happen to be run by people of Jewish descent. So I think that some people could draw a line there, right?
Yeah.
But not all Jews run them. Just these things
of
are
course
all
not.
run
I'm
by
just saying
Jews.
that,
there is a
some
difference.
people who happen to be Jews run a lot of these organizations, right?
Yes.
Actually, what was Jay Dyer had a stat the other day. He was like, the Vatican spent $4 billion on pro-immigration. Let me see if I can find this. It was something ridiculous. I was like, really? Let me see if I can find that stat.
Right,
but it was on the Vatican spending.
Thank you for the super chats, by the way. It says racism is so bad it's listed in the Ten Commandments. Oh wait, it's so bad God listed in Proverbs 6:19. Oh wait, I should read Proverbs 6:16 through 19. How much better to get wisdom than gold? To get understanding is to be chosen rather than silver. The highway of the upright turns aside from evil. Whoever guards his way preserves his life. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. It is better to be of a lowly spirit with the poor than to divide the spoil with the proud. No anti-racism in that particular part. You are correct. Those two verses don't seem to say anything about racism.
So I did pull it up. This is from complicitclergy.com. And during Biden's term, he granted Catholic NGOs $2.9 billion in immigration-related funding. So I got to take that back, okay? Only 3 out of 4 of those were pushed by Jews. The other one's the Vatican, unfortunately. That's crazy. They're not the Vatican, but at least Catholic NGOs.
Which probably had some Jewish backing, if I'm going to be anti-Semitic.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's probably still a link there, honestly.
Yeah. Just a theory.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is why Dyer wouldn't be called as anti-Semitic, even though he just like it's his tone. It's people tone policing. It's because Jay Dyer will just blah 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 blah. He'll call somebody an idiot and move on, right? But he will say the exact same things.
Dyer is also much more fact driven. He's much less just like just calling out.
He's 20 years.
He's pretty
he's
fact
much
driven.
less slurred.
He's 20. Yes, exactly. I think it is tone policing because I think Nick will say like the exact same thing while laughing and cackling, slur, and Jay Dyer will just kind of say it monotone. He's also 20 years older, right?
Well, and Jay has some pretty significant differences with Nick, even on the question of the Jews, as I understand it. So I think that his take is. Yeah, I'm not sure that I agree with everything Jay says, but I think that his take is a lot more mature and is coming from a lot more a position of, I don't know, facts and
it sounds easier on the ears.
I think the problem with a lot of quote-unquote anti-Semites is they put the Jews as like their highest evil, right?
Right.
And I think Jay just says like the Jews just happen to be involved in a lot of these things, and then there are other forces above that, right? So I think that's the issue point. It's people how they're ranking them on the totem pole, I suppose.
I mean, to me, it's not that different than pointing out that, black people have a huge problem with single mothers and
crime.
Dad, and crime. It's like, then those things are related. And, you can point that out and not be racist one bit. And in fact, I think pointing those things out.
But I say the N-word one time and people lose their minds. Right. Unbelievable. Actually, over on Ko-Fi, Noob Procrastinator, our top Semitic donator. Noob Procrastinator didn't say anything. He just dropped 5. So appreciate that, Noob Procrastinator. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. He just happens to donate, okay? It just happens that he's a Jewish donator.
Shadow Force says just once, referring to your N-word.
No. One time, one slip up.
One time that he'll admit to.
All over.
I wonder what Rabbi Peely would have to say about all this.
Dude, he would cancel me so hard.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he's stuck in the back there. He's never getting out. He's still wearing the hat, too.
to Walsh's cut 10.
It's really hard for anybody to unify with you, Matt, because you work with Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan, and Jordan Peterson. And they are all in the pocket of Israel. And we know that these people, they hate us. Like anyone that is not down with Israel, they actually hate. And like, it's not a Christian thing where it's like, we love our enemies. No, like they want us dead. Just like the left wants us dead. Shapiro wants us dead. Klavan wants us dead. And think about the way they talk about us. They call us filth, garbage. Like it's they can barely conceal.
So
it's like a seething contempt and hatred.
Now, if you go...
So that doesn't seem like a joke to me. Like, I understand he's hyperbolic,
serious there.
But I think that he's serious, and that's just not fair. It's certainly not charitable. I mean, he's doing everything and worse than what he's accusing them of. And if you listen, I listen to all those guys. I have a membership to the Daily Wire, and I listen to them pretty regularly. I disagree with them on many things, but I enjoy hearing a variety of perspectives, because that's one of the cool things about the Daily Wire is they actually do have a pretty wide variety of opinions. They're all more or less center right, but they still have a spectrum, and it's just not true. You can't really take that from listening to them, and so maybe he actually thinks that. I don't know, but if he does, then that doesn't speak well to his understanding of human character. But if he doesn't, then that's not a fair thing to say. You can't just throw out that kind of accusation.
Well, I think Nick is paranoid personally because
Yeah,
he's
for
had people take attempts on his life before, and all of these people have said terrible things about Nick, right? So they've called him filth. They've at different times in history they've said he should be banned from many platforms, right? Which is how he supports himself. So
It's still a far cry from saying that he should be dead.
I know. I wouldn't go so far as with those types, but there are certainly people in their camps that would probably wish harm upon somebody like Nick, right? Now, themselves though, again, I don't know if that's fair to them to say that, oh well, your followers might do something bad to me or something like that. I don't know if they can be held perfectly responsible for that.
I mean,
but,
yeah, I feel like, I don't know, Nick's followers are a pretty aggressive group.
I think, well, that too, right? And I think that, but again, I wouldn't blame Nick if one of his followers did something,
right,
because he has never called for violence in any way, shape, or form. I don't even know if he's ever called for these people to be deplatformed like they have for him, so. But I think Nick is a little paranoid.
Inherently wrong?
No, of course not.
Yeah, it's not.
I would deplatform my enemy in a heartbeat.
I think there are certain principles that should be upheld that perhaps go above the short-term wins. You don't always have to use every ounce of power that you have when you have it. But yeah, I think there definitely are times for deplatforming.
Yep.
Go back to the last time I talked about Fuentes. I don't talk about him that often. I was talking about the fact that I think there's a good person buried in there who's being basically prevented from coming out by his ideology.
Oh, and also I do want to give Andrew credit when we're moving back like 2 minutes to the discussion about when that right-wing Republican group chat got leaked for not dogpiling on those guys for making jokes. I do want to give him credit for not like saying, oh, you got to disavow and get rid of all these guys and being gay like the other conservatards were. So I do want to give him credit for that. And he seems
he's
pretty
right
level-headed
about
when
even
it
the
comes
way
to
that
Nick.
he's talked. Even the way he talks about Nick. He's, I mean, he will say that he's anti-Semitic because I think he does genuinely believe that Nick is anti-Semitic, and he might have a point. But he has been pretty charitable even in terms of covering Nick. I mean, even when Nick had like the girl show up, a bunch of people showing up at his house or driving by his house, and then a woman came and Nick, I think, pepper sprayed her or something like that. I forget the exact details of the story. But even then, Klavan, as I recall, was pretty charitable in terms of covering that story. So, yeah, I don't think that it's, I don't think Nick's comments were fair at all.
Well, I think the one who's been the harshest on Nick is probably Ben. Because if I remember correctly, the story goes back a long ways, because I think Nick at one point applied for a job at the Daily Wire. Like a long time ago, like 7 to 10 years, like a long time ago.
It was when he was in college,
yeah, long time ago. Didn't work out, and this was in kind of like the initial America First, I suppose, right-wing awakening of Nick Fuentes, right before he was like the Nick Fuentes we know now.
Reform Renegade, what clip are you talking about? Are you saying
I think he's talking about the Nick clip because, again, to be fair to Nick, there could have been something pre and post there that explains it a little
It's
better.
quite possible. Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, to Nick's point, like, I mean, there are literally hundreds of people who have actually called for his death. So, I mean,
somebody
being
did
paranoid
kill
about
two people and then show up at his house and tried to kill him. So,
yeah,
I get that.
And wherever that ideology comes from, and you know where I think it comes from. And so I've actually been quite kind to him, even though I don't think he is filth. I think he's talking filth, but I've been quite kind to him. Your dog's excitement says it all, that full body tail.
Oh, thanks.
You can skip ahead.
Okay, well, should we, well, is that it for the Nick, or does
No,
he have
no,
more
he,
stuff?
yeah, there's a little bit more. And we still haven't gotten to the part where he says the crucifixion comment, because that is in this clip.
Okay.
He cares too much about Israel. He's focused too much on Israel. But you can't say he's focused secretly or he's in their pocket or anything like that. That is his open belief. And as for me, I don't know anybody in Israel. I mean, I think I have a distant relative.
Go back
there.
just a little bit. This is actually important.
Okay.
There you go.
But the other thing is, it's a fantasy. You can say of Ben Shapiro, he likes Israel too much. He cares too much about Israel. He's focused too much on Israel. But you can't say he's focused secretly or he's in their pocket or anything like that. That is his open belief. And as for me, I don't know anybody in Israel. I mean, I think I have a distant relative there. I've never met him. You know, I have a friend who has a son in the IDF, so I guess that's a connection. But, I have more contacts in England and care more actually about England. I'm terribly sad about what's happening in England than I do about Israel. There's a thing on the internet where I'm supposed to get $7,000 every time I tweet. I post on X, and I'm thinking like $7,000 for a tweet. I want $7,000 miles per word. And I don't even want to post it. I just, even if I'm talking to my wife and saying, how's
He's not helping with the Jewish stereotypes there, saying that
about
he
to
wants even
say.
more money per word. But no, I get his point there 100%. Like Ben is in America out of convenience and because it's the best place to advocate for Israel, right? That is America's purpose in existence to Ben
I
Shapiro.
think Ben likes the U.S. as well. Ben does have.
He
has,
likes it here now.
Well, I mean, yeah. I think he does have dual allegiance. I don't, he certainly.
I think.
Yeah, I would say so at least. But I would say like if I was pointing a gun to the proverbial head of Israel or America, he would choose America every time. Kill, that is.
Sorry, say it again.
So if I metaphorically was holding a gun to the head of Israel and America and said, Ben, you get to choose which one I shoot, he would choose America.
Oh, which one you shoot? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, probably. But my point is that I think that he is not. I think that he does also have a strong affinity for the U.S., which I think is more than a lot of people give him credit for.
Yeah, but only in so much as it, I think, supports Israel, right? Because
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's fair.
I think if America took a anti-Israel position or even just a we're not going to get involved position, I think his tone would change, right? And if, let's say, the UK became the new, like, we're going to support Israel, they're our greatest ally.
But that's not the same thing as saying he only likes America in as much as it supports
I think
Israel.
he can like certain elements
he might
of
dislike America. He might start to like it less or even dislike it if they were, if you have two things
I
that
don't
are...
know what he cares about America for, because he's somebody who has said, like, I don't care about the ethnic or racial makeup of America. I could care less about that. I care about its economic zone, its GDP.
I mean, that's not a particularly radical statement. You would have heard anyone in the 2000s saying that exact same thing back when it was okay to be colorblind.
Well, right, but this was in like what, 2017?
I'm just saying that's not a Jewish thing. That's just a
They just happen to be. No, I know.
No, I mean, you would have said any conservative in 2000s, 2010s would have said something like that.
Maybe. I mean, I obviously wasn't politically active that early, I would say. I didn't even care about politics until 2016, really. So, take your word for it.
I mean,
how was your day, honey?
My issue with the browning of America is much more with the cultural implications of that than, again, with the race side per se. I just think that we can't change racially that much that quickly without dramatically changing the culture, and that's what bothers me, again, because I'm much more concerned with the nationality and the American spirit than the American race. What is the American race? It did start out predominantly European and it has continued to be predominantly European. I think there's a lot of good that comes with that.
Well, do you think the America is better or worse now
than when we started? Mm-hmm. We're better in some ways and worse in some ways.
What ways are we better in?
I do think that some of the worst ways have a lot to do with the massive amounts of immigrants that we have taken, if that's where you're going. I totally agree.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. I don't know why that you would think that would be an inference of mine, but I'm just curious. So let's say I'm actually just curious. So if immigration is too fast, let's say in 1,000 years we perfectly indoctrinate every person coming to the U.S. and it is 100% brown of your favorite shade. Do you think that it still remains America?
Sorry, say that again.
So I think you had mentioned you had an issue with the time frame of like mass immigration because it necessarily will change the culture, right? Because it's too much, too fast. But let's just move the time frame out 1,000 years and everyone in America is brown. Pick your favorite shade. Do you think America is the same or different?
Well, no,
but
still
America.
I can't imagine that would happen in a way.
But we've taken 1,000 years to indoctrinate these people.
So what happened to all the white people? They just intermarried and it just got browner and browner?
It's 1,000 years.
I don't really care about that. I mean, is that what happened? But if you're really talking about basically no white people in America in 1,000 years, I mean, that's still a pretty short time. But even if you extend that longer, did the white people
it won't even
propagate
be 1,000 years.
their culture and their history
like
for all that
years.
time? Wow.
It'll be like 100 years. We're only 6% of the population, James.
What's that?
We're only 6% of the population, James. 6% of world population. It'll be 100 years, 150 years at most.
We're already
before
on that
America was
trend,
much-
but yeah.
I mean, sure, if we continue the way we are. Yeah. So my point is,
Do you? Well, yeah. So
I can't imagine a scenario like that doesn't have a lot of other issues besides just the race that I would have issues with. But again, it's not. I don't think it's the Browning per se that's the issue.
So would you agree with the statement? I don't give a damn about the browning of America.
No, probably not. I would not agree with that statement. I don't think. I wouldn't say it quite like that, because I do. I mean, in the way that, well, it would require a lot of context before I would agree with a statement like that. I could maybe see a world in which I agree with the notion that's being supposed, but probably not even then. But I still don't think that that's a crazy statement, considering pretty much anyone would have said that, again, about 10 years ago on the right wing.
Was your dad. I want $7,000 per word, but it's all a fantasy. It's all a fantasy. And listen, my reaction to this thing on the right. I don't hate Nick. I don't hate Candace. I don't hate Tucker. But I think they have lost their way. I think they are doing something immoral. And I think it is. I believe that this obsessive hatred of Jews, which is what it is. I mean, let's face it, is an obsession, obsession against God. It is against the God who became everybody's God through the Jewish Savior Jesus Christ. Matt has a point. Victory depends on unity. It's true. We can't be picking on everybody. I don't argue with libertarians. I don't agree with libertarians, but I don't argue with them. I don't argue with isolationists. I actually have feelings for isolation. I think I see their point about that, but I'm not an isolationist. But they're welcome on board. It's a big tent. That's great. But surely, and by the way, I'm not going to pick on some kids or young people saying nasty things online. Who cares? When the New York Times says racist, awful, sexist things every day on their pages, and so does AOC, and so does all of the people on the left of the party. DEI is just blank racism. The way they talk about white people is disgusting. The way they want all outcomes to be the same is immoral. They want to erase women from the face of the earth. All I have to do is put on a string of pearls and talk in a fluty voice, and I can replace women. They're disgusting. So I don't get. You want to say there's a chat site where people say disgusting things. Yes, there's a newspaper called the New York Times, and there's a network called NBC where people say disgusting things as well. So yes, I don't care about that. But J.D. Vance, the vice president, came out and said, I'm not going to pick on these young people saying stupid things. We're not going to demonize young men for being young men. That would play a lot better for me if I didn't see Tucker Carlson in the Rose Garden at the Charlie Kirk ceremony. I mean, I do think about this. And people write to me and they say to me, you should tell Megyn Kelly she's got to denounce Tucker and Candace. And to me, that's not the point. I don't care who denounces who, and I don't think we should waste a lot of time on this, and I don't want to keep talking about it. But I do care that we on the right are clear about who we are. Are clear about what we believe. I always say this. I don't go into the details about what people are saying on the right because I want to be clear about what I believe. And this hatred of Jews is a hatred of God. Remember, Paul said that we were grafted on to the tree of the Jews. You were. I wasn't. I was born there, so I outrank all y'all. Okay? So, all right, I'm joking, but still, this God who chose the Jews became everybody's God through Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you something. Tucker had that pseudo historian on. He's a history hobbyist who came on and indicated that he thought, the Holocaust was just, the Nazis took too many prisoners and they didn't want them to starve to death, so they did them the favor, basically, of gassing them all to death. Let me tell you what the Holocaust was, and this will drive some of you crazy, but it's true. The Holocaust was the crucifixion on Imax. It was for those who missed the point the first time that this is who we are. This is who people are, that we will take God. If you don't think that Jesus bled when little children were led into a gas chamber, you don't know who Jesus Christ is. I don't care what you say. I don't care how many times you tell me Christ is king. You do not understand what is going on. When you pour the beauty of Christ and the beauty of the Jewish God, when you pour that into an entire civilization, as Christianity did, there are going to be people who have a reaction to that, and the evil has to come out somewhere, and it came out in the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a reminder that no matter who you are, no matter how high your civilization gets, no matter how rich, how great, you and me, we are still the schmucks who drove the nails in. We are still those guys who want to shrug off the yoke of righteousness that comes to us through God. So yes, I wish our Vice President J.D. Vance would tell Tucker to hit the road. I wish he would tell him to pound sand. And I think Wall should be clear in denouncing this evil, even though he calls for unity, which I agree with that, but he should denounce the evil of Jew hatred. But the most important thing is that we shame the Jew haters by who we are, by acting justly and loving faithfulness and walking humbly with our God. And that's what I want to see from the right. For more Claveny magnificence,
It's always the Holocaust, always the 6 million, never the 30 million Christians. Yeah.
Well,
the Holocaust is the one that's on IMAX. I think that's
why, which is why I think they're tied together. Is the Jewish Holocaust and then the Jewish Hollywood that promotes the Holocaust, right? So you have that interlinking there for sure.
The Holocaust was carried out with a certain amount of dispassionate mechanism that is still nauseating perhaps even more so than some of the mass starvations. I mean, there have been genocides throughout history, and the Stalin genocide is no more no less inherently evil, and again, more people killed by Stalin, so in that way, worse. But there is a certain amount of mechanical efficiency that was used in the Holocaust of the Jews that does make it just especially unsettling, and should make it especially unsettling. Whereas the other ones are kind of just your more traditional your traditional genocides that have happened throughout history. Whereas this one seemed like you have a modern, civilized Western culture, right? Because Stalin was Russian. That's not even quite the same. But you're talking about a Western, modern, supposed to be enlightened culture, just mechanically slaughtering people in a very technological way. I mean, that is frightening in a way that other genocides aren't. So I think there is a reason why that one has been played up. There are other reasons why that one has been played up, but I don't think that we should just discount the real unsettling nature, unique nature of the Jewish Holocaust.
Well, I could say there was a unique nature to the Holodomor too, to starving people to the point of cannibalism as well. You could say there's some mechanical human nature aspect to that as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's
I don't know why you would delineate between like a mechanical killing versus a like slow starvation killing in a systematic way. But just maybe this is too controversial for this panel, but why is the number always estimated between 1 and 6 million, but only ever quoted as 6 million? Just a little question there.
Yeah.
I mean, the population of Jews in Europe increased from 1939 to 1949, so it just seems... The 6 million number just seems, and I'm not even memeing here. The 6 million number I do not think is actually physically possible. I don't know why it's always quoted as that. Like it's always some range that they quote, and I don't know how they even come to this possible number, but it just seems to, considering there were 15 million Jews in Europe, the 6 million of them getting killed, and then in 1949 they're at like 15.9 million or something like that. It just doesn't seem physically possible.
I'll tell you, it's something I've never actually looked into.
Well, not only that, the amount of times the number 6 million was used in newspapers as well prior to the event. But yeah. And well, I think 6 million is actually like a religious number for Judaism as well. Like something about their new covenant or them receiving the Holy Land once 6 million die or something like that. But yeah.
There's symbolism with the number 6. I mean, I'm just saying, okay.
Yeah,
nobody denies that camps were made, that people were killed, that starvation, syphilis, chambers, all sorts of things were used in systematic killing of Jews. Nobody denies that, but people just say that the numbers seem off. All right.
I'm skeptical enough of official numbers to grant the point. It's not something I've ever looked into. I do think that we all stand on the shoulders of other people in terms of our facts, and
I get why they would upplay the numbers too, right? To their benefit.
I understand that as well. I have never felt the need to counter the official narrative on that. It does seem like there's enough institutional weight, enough of which I do trust, that it seems that I don't know, the more sound weight is behind the higher numbers, but I don't really know, and maybe it is just all bad incentives. So it's certainly possible.
All right, so now we have the Nick. This was from a couple days ago on Andrew Klavan comparing the Holocaust to Jesus Christ's crucifixion. So while Andrew was very candorous, is that a good word? Like he was a good sport about it and relatively fair. I haven't watched this clip, but I'm gonna imagine Nick is a little bit more feisty.
But do you understand what I was saying? Where ultimately what Klavan was trying to say is that the reason he was equating it to the Holocaust is because he was saying this is an example of how we, meaning all of humanity, killed Christ, and this is us meaning we are evil. We are evil enough to kill God, and this is just us, in case you missed the message the first time that we're evil enough to kill God, we're going to do this horrific evil. And, any other genocide would count as well. I don't think that Klavan would exclude those who just happen to be talking about the Holocaust. He is Jewish. I guess he has a certain, Semitism
for it.
was the topic of the day. But
Well,
I
so
think that's the point of what he was trying to say.
I mean, this is a larger topic of the dispensational Judaizing heresy within the church, which has always been a problem since the early church, since, Acts in the Bible, basically. But I think the reason is essentially they try to tie all of these things together. So, and it's under this umbrella of anti-Semitism. So they say, like, the Holocaust happened, the persecution of Jews is the persecution of Christ. That's what they're trying to link those things together, right? Anti-Semitic, Holocaust, persecuting of Christ. Christians persecuting Christ through the anti-Semitism, right? So now they say, right, you extrapolate that out in your normal everyday anti-Semitisms, right? Whatever it might be, noticing a CEO here or a pornographer there or whatever it might be somewhere out there. They say that's anti-Semitic. Being anti-Semitic is anti-Christ, right? Against Christ. It is persecuting Christ, because if you persecute the Jews, you're persecuting Christ.
I don't think the argument for Klavan is nearly as direct as that. I think he's saying that there's a correlation.
That line of thinking, I think, gets used specifically against Christians, and that reasoning there of Holocaust happened, persecuting Jews. If you persecute Jews, it's like you're persecuting Christ. You're a Christian, you can't persecute Christ, so therefore you can't be anti-Semitic. I have defined anti-Semitic as anything pointing out anything bad the Jews ever do.
Right.
So I think that's the trap to fall into. So that's why I would be like, I have to separate those two things, right? Because, I mean, if you want to go so far as to say that just genocide in general, right, is persecuting Christ because we are killing, doing evil to people that bear God's image, right? I can get along with that, but I know in the modern context, it's basically a hammer used against Christians.
Fair enough. Yeah, and again, Klavan is making a point that it does come from his historical understanding also of anti-Semitism as having a strong correlation with ultimately anti-Christianity, or even anti-true Christianity from within Christianity. I mean, he would say that there are examples even within Christianity of this sort of anti-Semitism that is a symptom of a larger rebellion against God. And he wouldn't define anti-Semitism in sort of the uncharitable way that you're talking about as being bad. But
that's what I'm saying. He would not, but he is putting up the one argument. He is putting up the one argument, right? He's doing the alley-oop. Holocaust, Jews, anti-Semitic is anti-Christian, is anti-Christ, anti-Jesus Christ, right? And then everybody else is going to slam dunk the anti-Semitism is, generic anti-Semitism, whatever that might be, right? That's actually, you can't do that as a Christian. So I think it's two parts, right? He's not going that full way, but I know that line of argumentation will be used. It's like when some retard uses the term woke right, and you're like, okay, well, you're an idiot, but that doesn't mean anything. Right. But they're just giving the ammunition to a leftist, right? You're now playing in their paradigm rather than just saying that woke right doesn't mean anything. It's nonsense. You're giving your enemy ammunition, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I think that's how it gets used in context.
And I will say, so I think Klavan is rather dispensational. I'm not quite sure. I haven't heard him talk in terms of like eschatology. I think he tends to be somewhat dispensational, although I don't know that he falls neatly into any particular. I don't think that he takes his theology from, is it Darby, the kind of modern dispensational view. But I think that from what I've heard, his perspective does certainly acknowledge a certain role that the Jews have to play in the people of God, even going forward. So he's not a replacement theologist.
Well, even I think that the Jews still have some sort of part to play. I don't know if anyone who says that the Jews have no part to play, like literally none whatsoever.
I think some people come pretty close to that.
Yeah, but I think that there will be some part in the eschaton.
So I think that the tricky thing is that this is something I disagree with Klavan on, and it always bugs me whenever he gets on this topic, because he just doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about. But he will talk about like replacement theology, meaning, as I understand it, that is the theology that the church is now the people of God, as opposed to the people, the genetic people of Israel. Whereas dispensationalists will say basically that no, the people of God are now like there's two two branches growing side by side, where you've got the Jews and the church.
Right, but even
Klavan will
within
talk
that,
about. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Klavan will talk about replacement theology as if it is inherently anti-Semitic. And, I mean, I see myself as being, as I understand it, largely in favor of replacement theology, at least as I've defined it, where the church is now the people of God.
All the church fathers believe the same thing.
Right.
So,
It's like, I don't see that as being inherently anti-Semitic. So I can't tell if Klavan just doesn't know what he's talking about, or if he
right. Well, that kind of goes back to my argument, right? Because he's going to use that term anti-Semitic at some point to say that you're the type of guy who's persecuting Christ, right? With like a generic Christian worldview. I mean, because even within the him saying we're grafted onto the tree, he's saying Jews are the tree, but I would say that Christ is the tree, right?
Yep.
And he even in Romans, as it goes further on, it's like, yeah, the Israelites, they fell away. Now they can still be grafted back on.
Sure.
Because they're the natural branch of the tree, right? But he says as they've been cut off, as they've fallen away, you too can. So you should live in fear of God, right? So I think it's more complicated than just that simple analogy. And obviously it's a type of the church and the Old Covenant and the Old Testament following through. I mean, if you want to read into it, Jay Dyer was doing a stream on this today, but basically in Jeremiah, there's a picture of God giving the people of Israel a divorce at some point, whether that is purely metaphorical or if there's, some sort of like if then statement. If you do not, then I'm going to divorce you and leave you, whatever it might be. Right. Just say you're an anti-Semitic theologian. I specialize in anti-Semitism.
Yes. Oh, I think we got a super chat. Let's see. Oh, that was just a star chat, but even still. People ask me we're slops, so they should be asking themselves when a single. I think I started this one, actually. Yeah, I mean, so I assume this anti-sodomite, alleged sodomite.
Alleged sodomite.
Is that talking about Nick?
I think you're talking about Nick.
Okay, yeah.
Nick. Nick has done some sus things in the past. The more I talk about Nick, the more people send me clips of him doing and saying weird things. So I'm just a little.
I don't think that Nick is the voice of the male youth.
You say that, but dude, every time I talk about Nick, I get like so many comments about like you're a loser. Nick's the future. Nick's this, so on and so forth. And I'm like, I think that there is a hero worship on the right. That people have been starving for a role model who says the things that they want to say. Nick does that. Nick's funny. Nick's a Zoomer. He's on their level. So I get it 100%.
Hey, send me some of those. If you have any of those clips, I need to watch them. Because I haven't seen anything controversial.
Okay. Because yes, I unfortunately have many clips of him and Catboy Cammy and accidentally showing gay porn to his stream and then blaming Israel.
I heard you talking about that. Yeah, I want to see him.
Yeah.
Who among us hasn't on occasion shown gay porn to their friends?
That's the second most gay thing you've said.
Not this show yet.
Not this show yet. Ron Kopai, New Crasnator again says, it isn't 7K, but that's what happens when you consider yourself American. You lose the control and access to all the fun. Sorry, boys. That's all right. Thank you very much, Noob. We appreciate it, man.
It happens. And then Patches had another comment as well. I agree with the Red Cross totals for the number of people that died in the camps.
So I know the meme 271K, but is that where it comes from? Is the Red Cross
from the
totals?
Red Cross numbers that the Schutzstaffel led into the camps to take numbers and whatnot. So yeah.
So is that 271 survivors or 271 deaths?
That's recorded deaths from typhus.
Because I know the memes, but not where that number.
That's where that originates from.
Okay, that's where that originates. Okay, gotcha. All right.
I think he gets the least views or engagement out of.
I think he's talking about. And now this is not our clip. This was from Pure Record, who has 116 subs. Great job for clipping this, sir. Much appreciated. But I believe he's talking about Andrew Klavan being the worst show on Daily Wire, or at least the least viewed.
Daily Wire, I think he gets the least views or engagement out of any of them. So he's the biggest loser at Daily Wire. He's
Just go ahead and skip
ethnically
ahead.
Jewish.
This is the coming up. Just and
he
then skip
convert-
past the rant, the guy who clipped this.
Oh,
Skip
okay.
past his comments, and then just go straight to where he plays the Nick clip.
Actually, this is funny too. This is the average Nick supporter, generic brown Mexican of some sort.
Dude,
Many
Mexicans are the
many such
most
cases.
racist people I've ever met, dude.
Yeah. La Raza, baby, let's go.
Even as one of the lower ranked hosts at Daily Wire, I think he gets the least views or engagement out of any of them. So he's the biggest loser at Daily Wire. He's ethnically Jewish, but he converted to Christianity. He works for Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. And a lot of people might say, well, what more do you want? He converted to Christianity. He's not really Jewish. He's Christian now. He doesn't practice the Jewish religion. He practices the Christian religion. Well, what did Andrew Klavan have to say about my interview with Tucker Carlson as a Christian? I'm not making this up. This is not an exaggeration at all. Predictably, he brought up the Holocaust. And specifically about the Holocaust, he said that the Holocaust was worse than the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
That's not what he said.
No, it's not at all.
No, he equated it.
Yeah.
Like I have the clip. I'll just pull this up just so everybody's clear here.
Let me tell you what the Holocaust was, and this will drive some of you crazy, but it's true. The Holocaust was the crucifixion on Imax. It was for those who missed the point the first time that this.
Well, the crucifixion on IMAX. What does he mean by on IMAX? Does he just mean on display in 1080p?
He means that on
and
mass
4K?
display in a way that, yeah. Well, he basically means that it's.
Okay. Okay.
He's saying it was projected to a lot of people in a modern context.
Because in a way you could say, yeah.
So it made the crucifixion more real to people, like the evil of humanity and our ability to kill and to be evil was on display in the Holocaust. That's what he's saying.
If I'm trying to steel man Nick, I'd say, well, he's saying it's more visceral, like it's more recent. It's a more, I don't know, like it woke people up to the reality of the crucifixion, right? You could kind of try and steel man Nick there a little bit, but yeah, Andrew Klavan at no point says that it was worse than the crucifixion.
That's your Jewish convert to Christianity. He said specifically, he said the Holocaust was the crucifixion in IMAX. So you've got the Son of God nailed to a cross and crucified by man, okay? Mankind killed God for nothing. They conspired, they betrayed him on false charges. They tortured him, and then they executed him publicly in front of his mother in the worst way possible. He is God. And Andrew Klavan says, yeah, but you know what was way worse? The Holocaust. The Holocaust was like that times 1,000,000.
I mean, that's some
taken out. Yeah.
That's some editorialization right there.
That's
I mean,
taken out of
that
context
is a
a bit.
New York Times headline right there, good sir.
Yeah.
Hey, that hand waving is a little suspicious too, by the way.
Nick, he's from Chicago, man. What can I say?
Yeah.
If you're a little Mexican twink growing up in Chicago, you're gonna end up a little fruity getting out of public school. Okay.
See, I have to watch myself, even just like the way that I hold the cigar. Sometimes it can look a little bit limp-wristed. So yeah,
Yeah, you're like, guy who has
have
a
a very
very
straight
to their audience.
straight wrist.
That's a Christian? How are you a Christian? How are you meaningfully
Also, I think he's also Italian, so talking with your hands kind of comes with the territory.
a Christian? He said the Holocaust was the crucifixion in IMAX. He said this had to happen to show people who didn't get the message the first time when Christ was crucified that this is how evil mankind really is.
Pause it for a second. Have you guys heard the story about the there was a Frenchman, from Vichy, France, a German and an Italian who were all captured and were being tortured for interrogation back in World War II. And the Frenchman goes in, caves like immediately, right? Comes out, and he's very ashamed. Then they take the German back, and takes him about an hour, but they break through to him pretty quickly. And then the Italian goes in, and is, after like 5 hours, they finally give up, and then they just throw him back in the cell with the Frenchman and the German, and they ask him, they're like, "Hey, how on earth did you survive that long?" And he says, "I wanted to cave much sooner, but they tied my hands behind my back, so I couldn't tell them."
Okay, I was gonna say this sounds like a joke.
Oh,
This
yeah.
sounds like a joke. It's a good setup. Good setup.
So I don't think it's an understatement to say that the Holocaust is literally their religion. And by they, I don't mean religious Jews, I mean Jews. I mean ethnic Jews. And that is such a thing. That is ethnic, it's heritage. It proceeds from the mother. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish. Like we're talking, it's genetic. That's how they identify. If you want to immigrate to Israel, you need to get a DNA test that proves you're ethnically Jewish. It's in your DNA. So we're not talking about a religion. We're not talking about Zionism, an ideology, because Klavan converted to Christianity, but he still can't let that go. He still can't let it go. His ethnic pride, because that's really what this is.
Okay, that's not me pausing. That's the
No,
video
yeah,
pausing.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But on the idea of ethnic pride, like obviously it's I don't want to say this. It would be very foolish to rely on your ethnicity to like save you. I think that is a very, very bad gamble that you're making with some dispensational like second chance heresies basically. I think it's very bad. But at the same time, like I mean, it is his people group, so I get why it's what he's going to equate everything to, Whereas where I think other groups just in modernity, they've just been de-racialized in a lot of ways where they don't think in racial terms, right? And so Jews are not, though. Not at all. For some reason that usually only goes one way. So I mean, like, yeah, I'm not surprised when a Jew always talks about Jew things, because it's like, well, they're Jewish, right?
It's a form of ethnic narcissism. It blinds him. Because what I would say as a Catholic about the crucifixion is that we all killed Jesus. The Jews accused him, the Romans carried it out, and this was a handshake between God's chosen, the Israelites, the Hebrews, and the nations, the Goyim, the nations, all the other tribes of the world. It was a handshake between them both to kill God. And Jesus's blood is on all of our hands in that sense. We're all guilty of that. That's what I would say as a Christian. And this is the ultimate statement, which is that all of our sins put Christ on the cross, and all of the nations literally put Christ on the cross.
I think that's the accurate. Everybody has that same interpretation. Like we killed
Right.
God, like
Yeah.
corporately.
But that is also what Klavan was saying. And this is
No,
where this
100%.
clip really, I thought, was funny, because Nick just completely missed the point, made it about the fact that he's using a Jewish example, which, yeah, I mean, okay, I get it. It's a little on the nose. He's a Jew. He's using a Jewish example. But
On the
ultimately, this is
nose.
also what, yeah,
You
this is also
anti-Semite.
what Klavan was trying to say. Like, exactly what Nick is articulating here is the point that Klavan was making, and Nick just took it in the most uncharitable way, misrepresented what he said, and is now making the same point. It's like, come on, man.
Well, because I hear some people use it like Jews killed Christ, right, as a way to like scapegoat them, and I think that's way too simple, right? I think that's trying to like get your own race out of it.
Yeah, I feel like you hear that all the time. I was kind of surprised to hear that Nick had that had the correct take on that. And maybe that's just me reading into it. But
I think there is it one place in Paul's writings where he says that they killed Christ, referring to the Jews. So I mean, it's
yeah, I mean, right.
There is like one extrapolation there, not extrapolation, but like one simple context of it. But holistically,
you can correctly say that the Jews killed Christ. The Romans also did it too. You can correctly say that we all killed Christ. I mean, it just depends on the context. But if you are saying the Jews killed Christ as an excuse for why you can hate the Jews on the basis of them being Jews, then you're misusing Scripture. You're taking, you are.
I mean, there's way more accurate reasons to hate Jews, guys. Come on, you can drop this one.
There you go.
And the message is that in order to observe Christ's sacrifice, that is why we must truly love everyone like we love ourselves. But for Klavan, his ethnic grievance is bigger. What happened to the Ashkenazim Jews in the 1940s, to him, is worse than killing God. That's ethnic narcissism. That's ethnic pride. That's ethnic supremacy. That is somebody who is a racial idolater.
I think Andrew jokingly is a racial supremacist, right? I think that kind of infects his Christian beliefs in some ways. Like, he jokes about it, right? He made that joke about, haha, I'm superior to you guys. I outrank you guys, and you guys were grafted onto me. Ha ha ha. Whether that's jokes or whether there's some underlying belief there, I mean, I see that sort of mentality a lot. I see it within Christians, like even in like church groups and small groups and stuff like that. People will have that kind of same very dispensational mindset about Israel and the Jews, modern day Israel and the Jews, that is.
Which is the irony. They accuse us of being the white supremacists or the racist, race idolaters. There's nobody that's a bigger race idolater than them. He says our genocide was the crucifixion of God in Imax. What a statement. How could any Christian be okay with that? And in some ways, I understand what he's getting at. And maybe you could say that in a different way, but the way he said it proves what this guy's really about. That was his reaction.
No, did it prove
Oh no, I want to hear this guy talk for a second.
Let's go for it.
who he really is, I mean, dude, you don't just say that. Like he said in IMAX, it's like, dude, Jesus, it's more important, bro. Like I said, the Holocaust is up for air, for me. I believe
He does sound like I thought he would. I mean, racially stereotyping here, but he kind of talks like I thought he would.
So,
well, and I think Nick at the end was a little bit more charitable, saying that there's a way to say that, like, this is a picture of like what sort of evil mankind is capable of and what we will do to one another who are made in the image of God, that sort of thing. But I think that and I get why, because again, I think it is going too far to equate everything to anti-Semitism, to the Holocaust. It's so overused, so overplayed. I see it as a cudgel against Christians, specifically white Christians as well. As like, oh, you guys can't say anything anti-Semitic or anything bad because otherwise you're like against God, right? And anti-Semitic in like the very broad definition that they often use, right? They often accuse everyone of being. Yep. Was there anything else in that clip that you wanted to go over?
Not in that clip, no. I do think that we should get to the final clip. Is the one that I posted at, if you go to 50-minute, 50-second, 40-second, or second, 46, 50-46.
50-46, okay.
Yeah. That's Klavan
2 days ago
addressing this. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't directly respond to it. He just sort of, as in an offhand comment, mentions the crucifixion line. But he's more just talking about some of this stuff in general. And I'm not sure I agree with him on everything in this clip. I'm curious to listen to it again. I listened to it the first time and thought, I
well,
get
in
where
the
he's coming
timeline,
from.
this is post.
This is after. Yep.
criticism. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Final chapter, Christ the King. Last Sunday was the feast of Christ the King in my church, and I guess the Roman Catholic Church. I'm an Anglican Catholic. And my priest gave a sermon so good, I just told him when I was going out the door, I told him I was going to plagiarize it.
Wait,
Some
pause it for a
of
second.
this comes from him. I won't name.
I don't understand this comment.
Well,
I mean,
think
obviously the 500 word things, I can be very verbose. That's fine.
Well, you're right. That's I think what he's getting at. It's like Nick is right, but if we give a 500 word qualifier to James, then Nick is wrong, right?
But Nick is wrong without
Nick
the
is
500
wrong.
qualifier.
Nick
was
actually took
absolutely wrong.
Andrew. Right. As somebody who would probably be more aligned with Nick than Andrew, I would say that Nick took Andrew out of context with what he said there. And he editorialized Andrew's statement while Andrew editorialized the Holocaust to equate it to the crucifixion. Right. So, I mean, I'm fine with saying that they both were being silly boys. And
Okay, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Of course, it's all jokes. It's like I'm always sarcastic unless I'm not.
Yes.
Right?
Name him because he's got enough trouble without my being associated with me. But the thing is, Christ the King is a modern feast. It's actually not made that long ago, and it celebrates the kingship of Christ, his dominion over all things. And it was instituted in 1925 in the wake of World War I, which was the beginning of the end of Europe. Basically, the two world wars are one war that marked the end of Europe for no reason other than people just got tired of being successful and beautiful and creating wonderful things. They decided, because we're fallen race, they decided they would destroy the country over nothing in finally a great explosion of anti-Semitic Jew murder, because that is, as I keep saying, the shadow side of Christianity. It's not the shadow side of Christ. It's the shadow side of men whose natural instincts, who feel their natural instincts have been suppressed and who feel guilty about the fact that we all killed Christ. That's what I was saying about.
See, I disagree with that characterization because I think almost all anti-Semitism throughout all of history has to do with Jewish actions, not because they're Jews, right?
Yeah, Weimar Germany wasn't, doing transgenderism and
I think
child prostitution. Definitely
like
wasn't
even in the Old Testament, right? The Christians or the Jews, the Israel was not persecuted and punished for being good, upstanding, wonderful people. Like they quite literally fell to child sacrifice, to murder, to all sorts of terrible things that they were commanded not to do in the Old Testament. And surprise, surprise, that lineage has not changed. Right? I mean, I think it completely obfuscates any sort of Jewish involvement in their own persecution, right? I mean, you can go back to the Middle Ages with blood libel, which I don't even think you're allowed to talk about on YouTube. I think that's still one of the two things you're actually not allowed to talk about on YouTube. But yeah, I mean,
I think it's on pretty good authority that it is a libel, though, right? Am I just way off on that?
Right, but again, I think that is one of the.
I think the Jews have been libelized a lot, and I think that does start to point to it is that they were being persecuted on the basis of their Judaism, not on the basis of their actions. I'm not saying that they were perfect, but
no,
that...
if you don't know what I'm talking about, it is something very different that I will fill you in off screen about what this specifically is. But so in that paradigm, Jews are solely kicked out of countries and persecuted because they are Jews, not because they have done anything wrong at all. Right? Because I mean, I'm fine with a 50-50 where they're persecuted because they are Jews, right, ethnically, and also because they continue to rebel and fall away from God and to I think the entire Third Temple Talmudic Judaism, which started in like the 4th century, is a complete affront to God. And I think they are punished because of their sins and because of their beliefs. Quite literally. And I think that punishment, just like it was in the Old Testament, is used to bring them back. And if you believe that Jews have some part to play in the end times, that there will be a regrafting of the Jews as a whole or the remnant, whatever, back into the church, it will be through some sort of persecution.
So go back a couple seconds before you press play.
Well, so Yeah, so the only thing that he never mentions anything wrong that Jews have ever done, and it seems like he completely chalks it up to people hating them simply because they're Jews, right? Which again, that argumentation is what the left does. Anytime I'm like, I don't like high crime cities, and it's like, you hate black people, and I'm like, I didn't mention that, but thank you for pointing that out. You know what I'm saying?
In the article that I did post the article in the chat, by the way, but in the article, he talks about how he feels like people will point out all the things that Jews did wrong, but they'll also miss all the good things that Jews did, right? And that it's a mixed bag. And
I agree. It's a mixed
I think
bag.
that's fair.
I agree.
Yeah.
In the
and
article,
so if
but
all
what he
you do
said
is point
here-
out, so he's not denying that Jews have done bad things, but if all you do is point out the bad things, then that is unfair.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people have this mentality about World War II is like, and then for no reason whatsoever, your friendly family neighborhood saints started persecuting these people, and it's like, you know, great propaganda combined with a few like real atrocities, and yeah.
Well, I don't think it's for no reason. I think that there's a long and storied history of persecution of the Jews. Like, I think that it was just a continuation of something that had been going on for a very long time.
Right. But I mean, again, I don't know if I can get into this that's on YouTube, but there were some very specific actions that people who happened to be Jews were doing. They were objectively doing these evil, horrifying things. The Nazis used the propaganda of these Jews to then use that as a hammer against all Jews, right? But you still can't deny that some of these people were involved in some absolutely heinous stuff, right? You can deny with the total persecution of the group, right? But that's like if I say, okay, black crime is 6 times higher than white crime, but you're like, oh, well, not all black people. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get that, but we still can't, like, black neighbors, black friends, who cares, right? Great. 100%. Wonderful, right? But you can't deny that there is a small percentage that is a problem, right? You can't deny that. You can't get rid of that. That has to be part of the equation.
Keep saying the shadow side of Christianity. It's not the shadow side of Christ. It's the shadow side of men whose natural instincts, who feel their natural instincts have been suppressed and who feel guilty about the fact that we all killed Christ. That's what I was saying about the Holocaust. When I said the Holocaust was the crucifixion and Imax, that was not a spiritual statement. Obviously, the crucifixion is the worst thing that ever happened ever because it's the death of God. It's the murder of God. When I said it was on Imax, what I meant is it was like on a big screen, and it was the fact that Jew hatred, you know, what is that line that Douglas Murray is always quoting from Life and Fate? Tell me what you blame the Jews for, and I'll tell you what you're guilty of, right? When people accuse the Jews of what they're guilty of, and when they accuse them of deicide, of killing God, they know that we all killed God, all men killed God, and they're accusing them of that, and that's what I meant by the Holocaust being the crucifixion in Imax. So this was...
Okay, so he's referencing like the reason why people internalize hatred of Jews and say Jews killed God is because they're rebelling against.
They're trying
their own,
to deny the fact that they were the ones who did it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. No,
which I think is a fair take.
I can see that Ben, when you cage it like that, I think that there can be a way you can word it that isn't quite so inflammatory, right? But I mean, it's the internet, right? People say all sorts of stupid things all the time. I happen to say hours of stupid things every week, so.
Was supposed to remind people after World War I, people started to, in the chaos, it was just, we didn't have it the same way in Europe. It was just the most destructive thing that ever hit, just wiped out a generation of men. There's no town in England that doesn't have a little monument to the dead of World War I. People started to look for certainty instead of freedom, and they started to turn to communism on the left and fascism on the right, and toward National Socialism, which is a little bit of both. It's actually a mixture of both. It's getting the real evil in. You know, we take the evil of communism and we mix it with the evil of fascism, and you get National Socialism, and there you are. And the Pope was trying to move people away from this by reminding them that these systems essentially make the state or a strong man the ruler over your life, and there should only be one ruler over your life. Now, my priest said a brilliant thing. Instead of the phrase Christ is king, which has been used, is a truth statement. It's, as I've said again and again, even though they lie about it online all the time, they keep saying, I didn't say this, but I did. From the very beginning, I said Christ is king is a true statement, but it's being used by anti-Semites as a divisive and hateful statement. And that's a terrible thing. It's worse to you. It's like burning a cross on someone's lawn. That's a desecration of the cross. It doesn't mean that a cross is bigoted. It means you are bigoted.
Yeah, but I refuse to give that power over to people who want to accuse people of like trying to dog whistle or something like that, because if you allow them to control your speech to that level, I mean, you give up a lot of your power, right? If somebody can control your tongue, like they can control you almost, right? Or at least a part of you. So
I mean, that was always
honestly,
my take on the whole Christ is King thing. For me, it was like, I will say Christ is King, even if the person who said Christ is King is doing a racist dog whistle that I don't understand. I'll still reply Christ is King. It's like Christ is King.
Right,
You know,
it is correct.
I don't have to
right?
participate. Yeah, it's like it is a correct statement.
Well, right. It's like it's like in text, right? You say Christ is King, and then underneath in parentheses it says anti-Semitically.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I always thought it's never a good idea, and I got a little frustrated with Klavan again because there's a sort of bent that I have that I've watched Klavan a lot. I really appreciate Klavan. I think that he is actually one of the wisest people on the Daily Wire for sure, and really in terms of just the way he speaks culturally into conservatism right now. I think there's a lot that you can learn from him, and there are some pretty serious disagreements that I have with him. But if you can get past those, if you can understand where he's coming from and still just glean the good, there's a lot of great stuff that Klavan has to offer. But yeah, when he would, I think that whenever you put yourself in a position where you're arguing, if you're on the side that's saying you shouldn't say Christ is King, then you might be on the wrong side. Now, Klavan never quite went that far, but it starts to sound a lot like that. It's like don't do that.
Let me use Andrew's logic against him here, right? So if you say the Jews killed God, right, because you're trying to rebel against the internal knowledge that you killed God, maybe a Jew is upset that I say Christ is King because deep down in his beady little heart, he knows that Christ is indeed King, and that infuriates him.
Using the cross as your spokesman instead of the spokesman of the person who died on the cross. But my priest said instead of the phrase Christ the King, he preferred the statement no king, but Christ. And when I heard that, I knew it was a brilliant thing to say, but I didn't quite think about it, and I thought about it, and now this is me talking, not him. But what I felt was so brilliant about that is Christ is king is an imposition of belief on someone else who may not share your belief, which is allowable in a free country, in a country that has freedom of religion. But no king but Christ is a declaration that you will bend the knee to no one but Jesus Christ. That is a different thing. That is a different thing because that makes you in charge of your life, and you are giving your life willingly over to Christ. And that assumes, though, that you have the courage to stand your ground. What is it that
Well, I think that's kind of what we were going about earlier, is distinction without a difference. No king but Christ. Christ is king. I don't know.
Well, he explains the difference that he's articulating, and I think that is actually, I think that's probably more of the difference that we were talking about with Christian nationalism versus people that are a little more squeamish about Christian nationalism, perhaps myself included.
Well, but if you're afraid to say Christ is king because it's imposing a belief on somebody else, like
you don't need to be afraid to say that. No,
I mean that's kind of the point, though, right? I mean, I don't know. Like if a pagan was trying to bring a statue of Vishnu into your church, would you just allow him because it's his free expression of his beliefs? I'd be like, you will not desecrate this place.
Yeah. I mean, right. I think you could still probably get there with no king but Christ. But
no king but Christ is also fine, right? Yeah. But I think that there's an aversion specifically to Christ, right, for all other religions, right? Because recognizing the deity of Christ, even with Muslims, right, even though Christ is a messianic figure within Islam, Christ is king is something that they disagree with. So I think it is literally what separates us from them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a fair point. And I think I think there are plenty of good reasons, lots of good reasons to use the phrase Christ is King. I have no issue with that at all. And I'm not convinced. This is why I'm interested to listen to it a second time, because I heard this the first time and I was like, I don't know that I entirely buy it, that no king but Christ is a better statement. I mean, I do believe
think-
that. Go ahead.
No, you-
Well, I do think that I think religious liberty has a certain biblical basis, in the sense that we are our faith is one that must be assented to rationally and individually, and should not be forced on someone. We want people to come to a personal acknowledgement of Christ as King. So I can see, I think Klavan is trying to point out that no king but Christ is more in line with that vibe than Christ is King, I suppose. And maybe I can see that as being a good thing, but I'm not sure. And I wonder that no king but Christ, as opposed to Christ is King, might give up too much as well on the other side. So I'm not entirely sure. And maybe it is just semantics. Maybe it is more of a distinction without a difference. Yeah.
I mean, no king but Christ does seem like a more personal declaration, right? So I get what he's saying there, but yeah, I think they're both fine contextually. And I wouldn't want to refrain from saying this because it might be too offensive. I think we've given far too much ground in that respect.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That Jesus says every 10 minutes in the Gospels. What is it that the angels say every time they visit earth? Be not afraid. There is no cowardice in Christianity. Even when threats come against you, you say the same thing you were going to say before. Even when the government turns against you, which is a terrible experience, you say the same thing that you're going to say before. Even when the Nancy...
Oh no, this guy gave Harry Potter his bank account info. Is it what movie is that? It's like the fourth one or something, where it's all those little goblins in the bank and they show Harry his vault or whatnot. That's wild. Multicam Black. That's wild.
boy Jew haters come swarm your feed with bots, you're going to say the same thing that you said before, if you know in your heart that it is the truth. There is no cowardice in Christ. It is the voice of John Wayne saying, this is where I stand. I will not be moved. I don't try to move other people, and I will not be moved myself.
I think that's kind of the conservatard position, though, a little bit. Like, I will not be moved, but I will also not move you. I'll just stand here menacingly. It's like, well, yeah, I get it, but I feel like maybe it would be a little bit more forceful in terms of our societal impact.
Right.
Also, there's another quote here, which is actually good. Shadow Force says, "No king but Christ could leave open the option of no king."
Yeah.
Because I don't actually have a problem biblically, or I don't think kings are explicitly against Christian morality. So I also think no king but Christ is also maybe a little even inaccurate, right? Because I think you can serve God, king, and country.
As long as kingship in a human model only works biblically with a divine right of a king's theory, in my mind. If you are having a king set himself up as a king in place of Christ, then I don't think Christians can really
the
pay
king
unto Caesar
himself
what is Caesar's, right? If that's what he's requiring.
Yeah. No, but the king himself has to be in service to Christ, right? It all has to be under Christ, right? So the king would need to be, or the emperor would need to be ordained by the church, right? So on and so forth. But yeah. A Christian imperium, that's what I'm looking for, okay?
The reason this matters is that to be free, you have to solve the problem of scale, how a person can be good individually, but his ideas can be destructive in society. And
Klavan will be very critical of boomers as well. Klavan thinks that boomers also ruined the world. He wants the boomer generation to die off and just somehow leave him. But
yeah, say boomer, this is a suicide pact.
Yeah, exactly.
problem of scale, as far as I can see, and maybe somebody who's more of a policy person can figure out something more practical. I believe that the only solution to the problem of scale is Christly love. You saw this with Charlie Kirk, who was very opposed to homosexuality, very open about it, but had gay people on his staff, treated them with respect, treated gay people with respect when he talked to them in his meetings and his gatherings. But it doesn't mean that there's no distinction between a gay relationship and a male-female relationship. Love is a bumper sticker for idiots. I mean, there's obviously a difference, and there's obviously one kind of relationship that it is at the center of the hierarchy, which again is not a question of personal value hierarchy. It's a question of what is sacred to a society. I can greet in friendship and respect and love all of the people who make and create at the edges of the social hierarchy. I am one of them. Artists should be at the edges of the social hierarchy, because it is not art. Art can be sacred once it's done, but the artist is not sacred. This is a mistake that the Romantics made. They thought the artists were like prophets. An artist can be like a prophet, but he's not what's sacred. His work is what is sacred. I would put, I have 10 mothers and 10 soldiers. I can build a society. That's all I need. All I need is men who do the work of men and women who do the work of women. That's all I need, and I can build a society. Mothers, obviously, especially because people can grow their own food, people can build their own homes, they can govern themselves. They will govern themselves. They can make their.
Oh, I just realized all these little dashes in here. These are all of his ad spots. He has
the little
1,
dashes.
2, 3, 4, 5 built-in ad spots. All right.
Wow.
Nice. And that's for a live show? That is for a live show.
No, he doesn't have the ads live. They just insert them into the YouTube version.
Really? How do you do that? They must have access to a feature I do not have, because I don't know how you.
Oh no, they are live. That's actually a good question. They must air the YouTube one maybe an hour later or something as like a premiere.
Oh, maybe.
It's a Jew feature.
Well, I was like, I just noticed because the next one is Prize Pick, so it's literally a gambling website, and I'm just like, oh, I hate that. I hate that.
I thought that was a little odd too. I heard that. Yeah.
Well, because I don't know. As a Christian, I'm like, okay, here's the next gambling ad for you guys. I hope none of you actually use this, because this is bad. This is almost surely a poor financial decision for 99% of you. I don't know about that. Now, what do you think about? Obviously, he is very charitable to those of different sexual persuasions, considering that his son is one of them, right? But I think there is something to treating people who have sin, who have other issues, but treating them with respect and humanity, right? And that doesn't mean you can't still speak the truth to them, still call them out for their issues, as we should call out each other for our issues, right? But, yeah. It's obviously a very fine line to walk as a father as well.
Yeah. I mean,
I found it odd that he referenced sexuality as sort of like a hierarchy, with obviously male, female being at the top of that hierarchy. So does that mean there's like good and less good? Because to me, it's like there's only one, and then everything else is off the table.
well, I guess I don't know. I guess he would probably put singleness lower than.
Well, I
married
mean,
couple? I don't know.
yeah, I mean that's. Well, I guess, okay, there's two options for you, right? You get called by God to be married, or you get called by God to be single.
Right.
I don't put either one of those higher than the other.
Once you
because
do what God is calling you to do, then
you're fulfilling
then
God's calling
at the top
either
of
way,
the
right?
hierarchy. Yeah.
However, post those two, everything else is off the table, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there are too many. Yeah, to call it a hierarchy when there really aren't that many options to choose from is probably.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like
Odd
there's
their own music. But there's one thing they can't do. They can't create themselves. They can't nurture themselves. They can't teach themselves how to be a man or a woman. Only parents can do that. And with a mother, with 10 mothers and 10 soldiers to marry them, I can make a society. You know, this is the thing that I look to as we go forward through this transition period, which is a period like all transition periods of great danger. This is a society, we need a society of free men and beloved women. That's where manhood lies. That's where womanhood finds its dignity. That and that alone is where freedom lives. It is not for me to force you to believe that Christ is king, though I believe it with all my heart. But it is for me to say, as a man and as a small R Republican man, no king but Christ.
Boom. I don't need a prize pick ad. Thank you, Andrew.
Real quick, is it in that stream when he talks about
Hiding in
yeah,
plain
in the
sight.
epilogue. If you go to the very epilogue, he actually talks to Steve Dace, the writer of Nefarious. If you go to the end of the video, I thought that could be interesting.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
We just watched Nefarious last week.
All right, this is member block, but we're letting everybody in because we want everybody to get to talk with me to Steve Deese. He is, as I'm sure you know, a host of the Steve Deese Show over at our pals at The Blaze, and he is the author of 13 books, 4 of which were bestsellers, including the 2016 novel A Nefarious Plot, which served as the inspiration for the movie Nefarious, which is now going to be on our website on Daily Wire Plus. I think you have to be a member to watch, but you should watch. Steve, it's really good to talk to you. How you doing?
I'm well, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And appreciate the kind words for the movie. Thank you.
Well, I said that off camera. I want to say it on camera. I really like this movie a lot. I think there's so much that comes out of A, the Christian space, and B, there hardly is a conservative film space. It's just not creative. It's just not good. And this was really inventive. And it's basically a two-hander, which is so hard to do, but it has been done well a couple of times on film. And it worked because of the twists in the plot. It worked because of the way the two characters interacted. And it was really good. I just thought, as I was watching it, I was just thinking, hey, wait a minute. I actually am watching something that's well done. I don't know how to deal with that. So you were writing novels before? Is that right?
This was actually the very first novel. I'd only written, nonfiction political stuff. So this was the very first novel I'd ever written. I got inspired to write it on my very first trip to Washington, D.C., because there's no better place to be inspired to write about a demonic takeover of America than Washington, D.C.
Yes, I figured.
And I'm there to do some publicity, and I jump in the shower. I'm about to go do my now coworker, Mark Levin's show, and this little voice in my head said, this book is dedicated to all the useful idiots out there, especially those of you who had no idea you were being used all this time, for you proved to be the most useful of idiots of them all, nefarious. And I remember thinking at the time, that is a very strange thing to pop into your head in the shower, And so I get back after dinner and some media appearances, and I'm just sitting in my room, and I want to make sure I don't become the wrong kind of honeypot headline in Washington, D.C. So I'm just going to be a good boy and stay there. All right. And I sit down at my keyboard and I just start, playing around with this thing that came into my head in the shower. And I wrote what eventually it ended up becoming about 90% of the introduction of the book that evening. I called a couple of theology friends of mine from different camps, one more in a cessationist Reformed camp, one in a more charismatic Pentecostal camp, because I specifically wanted to get a broad base of opinion on what I had written. And they both, I just read it out loud to them without giving them any kind of a lead up at all. They were absolutely goo-goo for it. And I just kept writing it. And it ended up being the book. And it was a modest success. I had a very small platform at the time. And I kind of thought the book was kind of dead. And then one day I get a call from a guy that I did not yet know, who I work with now, named Glenn Beck. And he said, hey, a mutual friend gave me your book. And it blew my mind. And I'd love to have you on my show. And of course, I said, I'm not really interested in having 10 million listeners hear about my book, so I turned him down.
Yeah, of
actually,
course.
It was on the very next day for an entire hour.
Quit bothering me, Glenn, right?
Yes. I cleared my schedule immediately. And then that listing that day in Burbank, California, was a group of producers who had just written the breakthrough hit for Pure Flix, God's Not Dead. And they wanted to develop their own production company and try to maybe do, shall we say, more mature subject matter. And they were getting ready to start pre-production for Abby Johnson's Unplanned, and they always wanted to do something in the spiritual warfare aspect of horror and thriller, but it's kind of hard to find something in the Christian space that is, will fit that niche and not, glorify evil at the same time.
Right.
And they heard me talking about this book, and they went out and got it on Kindle, Andrew, and they read it that day. They called me that night, or they texted me that night after I put the kids to bed, and I thought it was a Nigerian print scam, so I deleted the text. I thought there's no way this is true, and it turned out to be true. And then, after Abby's run, and then we had COVID, and then we began production of the film in the summer of 2020, and now here we are.
It's an amazing story, but in some ways it's not an amazing story because, people write to me all the time, how do I break into the movie business? And the fact is, I don't know, because I was dragged into the movie business from writing books. And I got the same kind of call. One day I just picked up a phone call. There was a guy I'd never heard of before who said he was my Hollywood agent, just sold my book for like a shower of gold. I was like, okay, just send me the gold. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Golden showers. That's a rough reference there, homie. You're not helping yourself there, dude. No, what do you guys think about this? Because I hear this a lot from people in the more Protestant side of things, where they hear a voice or they have some sort of like direct interaction, or like whether it's the voice of God or something else, right? That talks like directly to them. Do you guys find anything odd about that? Strange?
No, it's been happening to artists since artists have been a thing. I mean, Tolkien once said that he wrote the entire Lord of the Rings, and he was a Catholic, because he, the Hobbit first. The Lord of the Rings is a different story. The Hobbit was because just one day, the idea came into his head. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. And he was like, what's a hobbit? I got to figure out what a hobbit is. And then wrote the Hobbit. And of course, that's him retelling the story, but it's still that same kind of thing where someone just hits you all of a sudden. And even the Lord of the Rings, he said he wrote the entire book because he had the idea for an elvish line, Ellen Sila Lumen Omenti Elvo. I've just added myself as being a major nerd, but which means a star shines in the hour of our meeting. And he was like, that's really pretty. I got to find a book to put that in. And then wrote the Lord of the Rings. So, I think that basically they used to call it muses, right? They used to call it, the artsy gods would put ideas in your head. And who knows exactly what it actually is, but I think artists have been experiencing this kind of inspiration, and that's why they call it inspiration, for as long as art has been a thing. And I think all good artists experience this kind of thing all the time.
I just mean in general, though, not necessarily about artists, but they're like, oh, God really spoke to me, or God really said something, like as if there's like some sort of direct theophany or something to them personally. And I always find that a little skeptical. Or so. Not that God doesn't put things in your mind or put things in your way to like, coincidentally, but like directly speaking to you.
Someone's being like almost schizophrenic in a way. Like,
well, maybe it's just the way people rationalize their thoughts, but listening to other people talk about it specifically, yeah, right. Because listening to people like Jay Dyer or Jim Bob talk about it, who are Orthodox, they're like, we would never be so arrogant to think that God would directly commune with us in this way. Like, we would go talk to our priest about this. We wouldn't be like, this was God himself talking to us. Because I think that is, like, I've heard that from just a lot of people that like, oh, God spoke to me, God did this, God did that. And I'm like, possible, sure, but
I don't want to downplay the work of the Holy Spirit in our hearts. I mean, God does live in me, and he absolutely does speak to me. You're right. I would be great. No, I mean, I've never experienced that. And I think most people, even when they describe it, it's not like a voice. It's just like a thought that then they're thinking, like, wow, that seemed to have come from God.
I have heard people describe it as a voice, and I'm always just a little...
I mean, yeah, I've never experienced that either, so I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I'm also skeptical, but I also don't. I don't want to downplay the work of the Holy Spirit.
Well, and it's because he brought up the word charismatic, and I was like, that's usually the crowd that I hear from the most. Is people like that?
Sounds kind of Joseph Smithy to me, but
yeah.
So now. Was the book published by a mainstream publisher, or was it just...
We published it via Post Hill Press, which is in New York City and Nashville, Tennessee, where you guys are.
Yeah.
The film, I will tell you, the making of this. Well, first of all, the book is based off of C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters. I wrote it to be a kind of an homage sequel to it. And so you obviously cannot make a movie with a hour and a half rant by a demon. That's not a movie, right? So we had a movie character, but we needed as the MacGuffin. What's the plot device to drive this story? And so we decided we were going to actually make the movie the prequel to the book. The movie was going to tell the story of where this demonic manuscript about the destruction of America actually came from. And that's the story that people see when they watch Nefarious.
And were you involved in the filmmaking process, or did they do what they often do with novelists?
I was actually the executive producer of the film, so I raised the money for it. I fought the labor unions to get it made in Oklahoma.
Wow.
I didn't realize I was going to have to do that in a right-to-work state, but I guess we did. The amount of spiritual resistance, Andrew, that we had to this film was crazy.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: we also saw God open up doors that we just could have never opened up on our own. I can tell you a quick little story if you don't mind,
please,
about that. So when we got done with the filming of the movie, and that's a whole tale that we even got this movie filmed in the first place. Well, the way the Oklahoma Film Credit works is everything you do in Oklahoma is eligible. So I mean, we're ordering styrofoam cups from Oklahoma. We're doing everything in Oklahoma, okay? And we're trying to find an editor in Oklahoma, but there's one guy and he had been nominated for an Oscar, but it was for a documentary. He'd never done a feature-length film. So we thought, let's give this guy a shot. And when we gave him our assembly cut, for people that don't know, that's the totality of all the footage that we filmed. And he is to now give us, a rough cut. And the directors wanted to screen it before they let me screen it. And they're like, this is terrible, but they didn't want to tell me. And so one day I'm doing my show and I get an email from a guy named Brian Jeremiah Smith. And he says, you don't know me at all. Love your show. Love the Nefarious plot. I've been waiting for this movie. I'm on indefinite paid leave at Netflix. I was their top editor, but they wanted to fire me because I'm the only one that wouldn't take the jab. And then the Supreme Court overturned the mandate, and they don't know what to do with me now. So they just put me on indefinite paid leave. Here's my resume. If I can help you guys at all, let me know. But you're probably too far along in post-production, so I probably missed my window. And so I just sent it off to our directors and said, hey, maybe for your next project, this guy would work. And they get back to me right away. And like, funny you should mention this. We were trying to figure out how to tell you this movie is awful. We don't know what to do with it. And we need a better editor. And so we're going to look this guy up. So they do. And this guy's resume, he worked on Get Out. He worked on The Haunting of Hill House, which is one of the top productions Netflix has ever done. He was actually assigned to do the editing for The Fall of the House of Usher. And they took him off of that because he wouldn't take the jab. So this guy's way beyond our budget, way beyond what we can afford. But he says to us, I'm getting paid from Netflix right now. So why don't we just do this? You guys pay me what you can, and we'll just let Netflix pay me to edit your movie. So we said, okay.
That's amazing.
Right? And I mean, we had a guy that has so many credits in the horror thriller genre. We didn't even know this guy existed. And we got him to save our movie. He came in like Mariano Rivera, man, in the bottom of the ninth. Bases are loaded. Nobody's out. And we have to strike out the side. We can't even have a sack fly. And he did the thing. And he saved our movie. And it was just a door God opened, and Netflix actually paid for him to edit our film for us.
And people are probably surprised that he didn't have to film. You didn't have to refilm. But like what happens in the editing booth is kind of magic. I mean, it's just they save everything there.
I mean, he took B-roll test shots.
Yeah.
And he was able to, because one of the things you make a movie like this is it doesn't become monotonous. Just these two guys most of the time.
Right.
And so what are the devices that break the monotony up? And he found shots that we just weren't even planning on using. They were test shots. He refashioned them, recommissioned them. There's one that he used like 3 times in the movie. He just kept flipping angles. So you think it's a different shot every time, just as a transition.
Yeah.
Just those little deft touches that just, absolutely blew our minds.
That's amazing. And the
I
thing
think that is such a cool thing.
That is the thing that makes the film work.
I think that it just gives you a little bit of inside baseball into how hard filmmaking is. I mean, you can have the exact same raw footage and have a good movie or have a bad movie. And, we were poking fun at some of the worst parts about this movie, but I think overall it was a good movie. And that's really, really hard to do. And there are so many ways and places where you can go wrong in that process. And I think that it just shows, I mean, we can be so critical of some of these smaller films, and we should be. I mean, we should expect good art from anyone who's trying to put art in front of us. But music, or art in general, but especially film, is really tough. There's just so many things that have to come together to make it work. the way we expect it to work. Like we've kind of become accustomed to a certain quality of movie that we just, even if we're not sure exactly what was off about a movie, we know if we've watched a movie that was subpar.
So I think it's very important on the right is people often downplay media or they have a derision for people who consume media, whether it's video games, TV, music, whatever it might be, right? It's like, oh, you shouldn't be concerned with that stuff. The problem is that it is pop culture, and that is pop culture for a reason. So if you, like, I think Matt Walsh, actor of the Daily Wire, he makes a lot of comments about people who play video games or whatnot because video gamers are the most oppressed group in America. But I think these are incredibly important battlegrounds that people simply give up.
Yeah.
And then they lose them. And then they're like, wow, why does the popular culture so anti-Christian? Why is it so evil? Why is it so degenerate? And I'm like, because the Christians left it. So of course it became the opposite of that. Right. It's like the good people left. You said it wasn't important. And now it's like it's a training ground for the most degenerate evil that you can imagine. Right. Like see what they're pushing on Netflix and all these other places. Right. You should not be running away from it. You should be taking it over.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't cater very well to, I mean, forget Christian, but it doesn't cater well to a conservative mindset. These sorts of industries tend to be long shot industries. They're industries where you have to invest a lot and possibly get nothing back. And that's not typically the type of industry that conservatives like to go into. Conservatives like to run, oil companies or things that are like kind of have just a steady growth that eventually just becomes ginormous. But that's what we like to do. Whereas leftists tend to be a lot more willing to sort of take those long shots. And that's something that we have to overcome that conservative bent and be more willing to do that. Because you're right, we will just lose it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mel Gibson's Passion 2 is coming out soon, 2026. So that should be interesting.
Dude, I hate that movie coming out. It freaking spoiled the ending of the book. Unbelievable. Actually, there was a controversy with that because one of the women that he hired to play Mary is a pro-abortion activist
I did see
or
that.
something. So I'm like, yikes.
You got to separate the art from the artist, but that's a tough
I
one.
know,
Yeah.
but it's like you couldn't just pick a nice Catholic woman or just someone from the region. You had to. Like,
Sometimes
I
you
would,
do.
right? If I'm
Play
hiring
with the hand you've been
somebody
dealt.
like Jim Caviezel was great as like role of a lifetime for him, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just be selective in who I'm putting in these roles. For nothing other than, optics.
Reformed Renegade is talking about enjoying watching bad movies, which is fine. I can appreciate that. But then he said, this slander against Sharknado, which is a fantastic movie, all 6 of them are just cinema. I don't know what you're talking about. Have you guys ever seen Sharknado?
Nope.
I know of it. I've never seen them.
I mean,
Does it
imagine
involve
a
shark in
tornado
a tornado?
that sucks up a bunch of
No,
sharks.
I know the concept. It's just people getting killed
It's-
in wacky, stupid ways. It's so dumb with like really strange cameos at times.
Oh, no,
My
it's even better than that.
My
It's-
friends used to watch them.
It's so good. You're so campy. It's so funny.
Film work is when you have only essentially 2 characters. It's the twists and turns in their relationship that keep you going, and that really did work for me. Do you still write novels?
I've written a couple. Yes, I wrote a sequel book to a nefarious plot called A Nefarious Carol, which we are hoping to turn that into a film here as well. I hope to have more news on that maybe next year in 2026. I've done a whole bunch of children's books. Some funny, some serious. In America's Christian Heritage, we did one last year, Richie Meets the Rainbow, to pan Pride Month, that I'm particularly fond of because we actually became, Andrew, a certified LGBTQ bestseller.
Really?
Yeah, we subversively tried to infiltrate their ranks and it worked. So that was kind of cool.
That's very
So
funny.
I don't know how many guys can say they made they executive produced a Christian movie and they are a certified LGBTQ bestseller. But I'm on that very short list.
Very
yes.
short list. I have to say,
Didn't
I'm
Matt
out of
Walsh do
time,
that
but I
too
just have
with,
to say,
What is a Woman? He was able to
Oh yeah.
build that as like an LGBTQ literature.
Of course. Should we finish out the clip? I mean, there's like a minute left in it.
Sure.
All right.
God bless Glenn Beck for reading fiction. He is among the only conservatives who actually likes fiction and reads it and talks about it. And I always love when I go on his show and I have a novel, at least he knows what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it. It's just a great thing. And I'm not surprised that he was the linchpin. Steve Deese, you can find him at the Steve Deese Show over with our pals at the Blaze. It's great to talk to you. And I hope it does great business on Daily Wire as it has done before.
I appreciate it, brother. God bless. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you again. All right.
Speaking
That's
of
it.
Fiction.
Boom.
Andrew Klavan's fiction is actually really good. Well worth a read.
Take your word for it.
He's an excellent
I have
writer.
not partaken. Is that how you say that?
I would recommend Werewolf Cop, which is a bad title. He'll say it's a bad title, but
That
the book
sounds
works.
like white girl smut or something.
It does. It
Werewolf
does.
Cop.
Yeah.
Twilight
He-
garbage.
Yeah.
He said it. He wishes that he could
Twilight
go back in
fanfic.
time and name it something different. But it is an actually great book. And his new the series that he's currently writing and putting out is the Cameron Winter series is also very good. I'd recommend it.
Well, gentlemen, we are 2 hours and 50 minutes into stream. Did I ever pin that? I didn't. My bad.
The night is
Yeah.
young.
The night is young, but I am old. So, is there anything you guys wanted to get to before we hop on out of here?
No, sir.
Did we want to play that? Was it a short clip about the guy going to the church, claiming to be Jesus? Do we have that clip?
Oh, where is that?
Why not?
Was
That's
that
kinda fun.
Did we talk about that on Instagram or is it in our Discord DMs?
I sent it in the Discord.
Okay,
It's the body cam footage.
Yeah,
right?
I haven't
That
watched
one?
it yet, but I felt like it was on theme for
we
nefarious and demon stuff.
I want your opinion if you guys think this guy is possessed.
2025 in Fenimore, Wisconsin. Deputies responded to a church after a custodian reported a man was demanding to speak with a priest and trying to access a restricted area.
Okay. Talk to him. Hello. How are you? Fine. Okay.
Wait, is that guy just in there praying?
Yeah, he's just in there
He's
praying.
at the altar
Yeah.
praying. Oh, well, he's like, hey, by the way, not to interrupt you. I know you're doing stuff, but there's a guy I have to remove from the building. So just like be aware.
Hello, sir. Hey. I'm Deputy Wolden to the Sheriff's Office. How are you?
All right.
Okay, so what's going on today?
Nothing. I just need to open this.
Okay. Well, we can't really do that. That's the church's property.
Okay.
Okay. So how'd you end up here today?
Because I'm Jesus.
Do you have some friends around here or something? I mean, for me to help you, you have to talk to me.
Bro, this is a very, very patient officer. I can't believe that he did not handcuff him after he threw himself head first. Like, that first fall was intense. That's concrete, granite, and he just head
Marble.
first, whatever that is.
So,
and then he assaulted him. Like that man, like
it gets worse. But this guy's clearly on something, obviously, but he's cognizant enough to what he's going after up there is the tabernacle, which is where a consecrated host is stored. So he's like laser focused on attacking that, which is interesting to me.
I mean, there's when he first turned around with the wide eyes, right? It's like there's uppers or something there, the holding the cross while screaming and convulsing on the floor. I would like him to be examined by a priest, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Demonic drug behavior. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it could be a combination of the two.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit more. Now, if this was happening on the side of the road somewhere, I'm like, whatever. That didn't get the right fent. But specifically going after the altar, holding the cross and screaming. Oh, his screaming is a little effeminate. What did he yell at the guy? He was like, "Get out of the way, gay," something like that. But yeah, do we need to keep going? Does it get worse?
It gets worse. Yeah.
20, key step up, 616, keep it over.
He does not seem to have much concern
I
for
got
his
more
body.
people coming. He's on something.
What is the code for a demon possession?
10666.
Yeah.
Poor dude just praying there, man.
I know.
20, how far out are you? Devor.
I'm shocked that he's physically able to keep doing this.
So he's dove a couple, 3 times. He's fell backwards off the thing here. He's on something. Something or other. He ripped the crucifix thing off the top of the thing there. He just went and grabbed one of these things here and kind of came at me a little bit, but I shoved him off, and then he hopped back up there. So
I am concerned as to why the police officer is not
I
stopping
haven't been able to
him.
get anything out of him whatsoever.
Stay away from me. What's going on, man? I'm Jesus Christ Almighty. I'm back with the sheriff. Fuck you. We're just trying to help you out. Yeah, you're a devil. No, we're not the devil. The devil's not here, man. What's going on? Sorry, backing up, motherfucker. What's your name, dude? I'm Jesus Christ Almighty. Okay? What can we do? Back up. Back up. What can we do to help? I'm Jesus Christ Almighty. Okay.
What the lesbians?
To fucking die for their sins, motherfucker. Okay, we need to. No. Nobody else needs to die. You are under arrest. Put your hands behind your back now. No, I'm not. Now. Yes, you are. I'm not. You're gonna get tased. Put your hands behind your back now. Hands behind your back now. Excuse me. Put your hand. No, you're not allowed to do this in here. Put your hand behind your back. You aren't allowed to do this in here. You aren't allowed to do this in here. You are not allowed. Put your hand behind your back right now. You're gonna get tased. He said you're not allowed.
Dude, blood running on his
I
forehead.
say you're not allowed.
You're gonna get tased. Hands behind your
You're
back
gonna let
now.
me go.
Now.
You're gonna let me go so I can get to where I'm going, please.
Put your hands behind your back.
Let
You're gonna get tased. Under arrest.
I'm going there. I'm going there today, motherfucker. I'm going there today. I'm going there today. Ah!
Hands behind your back now. Now.
Nope. Not. Nope. You're gonna kill me.
You're gonna get tased
Jesus
again.
Christ Almighty. Jesus Christ Almighty. Kill me now. I am the Lord Jesus Christ.
calm down, dude.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You gonna calm down for us? I will calm. I'm ready to speak. I am here.
I mean, if there was ever video photographic evidence of a demon possession, like this would be in fact it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and evidence of drugs in his blood wouldn't negate that fact.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I mean, why wouldn't?
No,
it
if
be
anything,
used-
it's a
use
portal,
that as-
right? I mean,
use
drugs
that,
just
use that to his
are an
advantage, of
invitation.
course. Yeah, they lower your inhibitions, right?
Yeah.
Of course,
Exactly.
of course.
Like a series of yeses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the video.
exactly.
The video was back in February, but I think this guy who runs this channel just finally probably got it FOIA'd. So, but
Well, let me see.
he posted it relatively
6 days
recently.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro's falling into the marble like it's the ball pit at McDonald's. He's a devout crystal Methodist.
Dude, there's so many good. There's so many good.
Yeah, the cop was really unconcerned when he fell the first time. I felt like that would be a good time to cuff him right
I
then.
know.
Yeah, I think he was waiting for some
The fact he
backup,
didn't knock
but-
himself out. Bro, like obviously people injure themselves, but to willingly fall backwards and have no self-preservation whatsoever multiple times, the gripping the crucifix and screaming, the I am here line, you can't stop me wherever I'm going. I don't know, man. That man needs another set of handcuffs, a straitjacket, and a priest.
Yep.
And a 2-week detox.
They were struggling to get those cuffs on him. 2 of them too.
Yeah. Showcases. Okay, so this is just I didn't know if they had any further context. What does it give us? Because I wonder if we tracked him down, what he would say.
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much the climax of the video, though.
Yeah, that is.
That
It's
is
hard to watch.
absolutely disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gross. Samuel L. Waxon. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very surprised that person legitimately assaulted the cop, and he pulled his taser, but he didn't send it right there. I suppose he was like legit waiting for backup. Which I suppose is the wiser move. But there were people around. Like, imagine if that guy had incapacitated the cop and then went after the other people there.
Yeah, I know.
So I mean,
I know.
I feel like
Cops are just so hamstrung these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that the situation resolved itself with only that person getting injuries, but that is... I would actually, if it's possible to figure out what happened, to like find that guy's booking and what happened to him afterwards, I would be very interested in hearing the conditions of that. So maybe I'll try and look into that. Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we can actually close it out. We've been going for quite a while. Thank you all for being here with us. Greatly appreciate your time, and hopefully you've enjoyed the stream. If you have any suggestions for future topics, feel free to send them our way. Otherwise, we will just keep coming at you. Not sure if we'll do one midweek this week, but at the very least next Sunday. And yeah, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the super chats and the support. God bless you all.